What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I drop 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
No, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go! Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You're watching 40 Days, 40 Nights. This 40-day odyssey where your boy sits here trying to talk sports, trying to talk pop culture, trying to talk all the things that EJ loves. And man, I'm really excited to be back with you. Wrapping up week number 2. It's been a long week. It's been a fun week. And we got a lot to talk about on this show this morning. We got to talk about this shootout, this showdown between two phenomenal NBA rookies, Cooper Flagg, Kon Kneuppeul, putting on what I think will be considered probably one of the better rookie showdowns we've seen in NBA history. Cooper Flagg scoring 49 points, Kon Kneuppeul scoring 34 points, including the game-winning free throws at the end. The Hornets win this game, but the story being more about just what we may be seeing in terms of the next real superstar in the NBA, and just how big a star can Cooper Flagg become, considering where the NBA sits right now, where we're looking for who is the next face of the NBA. That's been this kind of mythical conversation that keeps happening about trying to find, who is the face now that LeBron James is about to retire soon and Steph Curry is entering the twilight of his career. Who's the next face? And it's been something that a lot of people talking about the NBA, talking about the future of the league, they've been obsessed with this conversation. And I think Cooper Flagg is entering the chat. I think he's entering the chat in a major way. And we're going to have to talk about this performance he had last night. We also got to talk Kon Kneuppeul, by the way, who's also having a phenomenal season for the Charlotte Hornets, who I actually think have improved a great deal this season. It seems like they might actually be heading in the right direction. So NBA's in good hands. There are plenty of amazing young stars. But if you're looking for that next face and you're concerned about all the foreign faces, because you got a Shea who's from Canada, Wemby's from France, obviously, Jokic, obviously Serbian, you got at least one American, that's for sure, in this rookie class. And again, Kon Kneuppeul has played well as well, but Cooper Flagg is particularly, he looks like he's absolutely the real deal. He's had a phenomenal rookie season. Awesome night last night. We'll break that down. We'll also talk about the latest in the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade market search. We're learning some details about some of the players he may want to team up with. And it's essentially why we've talked a lot about the Minnesota Timberwolves being part of this conversation, because reportedly he and Anthony Edwards have had conversations dating back months about potentially wanting to play with each other. It seems like Giannis, we know he's talked to Bam, we know he's talked to Anthony Edwards. Ironically, the whole thing was like, he wants to be a Knick, and that was how this whole thing started. I'm like, where were the conversations with Jalen Brunson? Have you talked to Jalen Brunson? I hope that you talked to Jalen Brunson, or is this about just New York City and the marketing and all that goes with that? So I don't know. But nonetheless, he has apparently spoken to Anthony Edwards, and that has made the Timberwolves an aggressive suitor for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, can they pull off the trade is the big question. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Joe Brady, new head coach of the Buffalo Bills, had his opening press conference yesterday, and his comments that I actually think were not in the press conference because I couldn't find it anywhere, but he's been quoted everywhere saying it, so I assume at this point they're true that he said this. Maybe he said it's a gag over reporters. But voicing support for one Keon Coleman. And I want to talk about why I feel like I was very impressed with what we saw from Joe Brady. Also, a little bit of details about Josh Allen that we learned yesterday from that news conference and from that introduction of the new head coach. We'll break that down. And finally, also, I promise, I told you I will, and this is the day to do it because we have plenty of time today. We will talk about Reggie Miller's bizarre comments about Derrick Rose. But also, staying on the Hall of Fame aspect, which is kind of where we're going with that. Some writers who did not vote for Bill Belichick became this massive story of how in the world did the second winningest coach of all time, the coach with the most Super Bowls of all time, who was the architect of the Patriot dynasty, how does that guy miss out on the Hall of Fame on his first ballot? It seems implausible, but there are people that are trying to explain it that made these votes. So we're starting to know the people who made these votes. They're pleading their case, their cop and pleas. So we'll break all that down, man. This is gonna be a fun one. This is again 40 days, 40 nights. Your boy EJ Stewart, wrapping up week number 2. And of course, if you're listening, first of all, if you're watching this show, again, we're streaming live multiple avenues, okay? Streaming live right now on YouTube, New Generation Media. Streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart. Also streaming live on Instagram, Action EJ. Make sure you hit your subscribe on all those spots. Make sure you hit us up in the comment section. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you do all the things you can do to support the channels. We really appreciate it. But again, make sure you subscribe, New Generation Media on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram, Action EJ. Follow me on XEJ_Stewart. We're streaming on all those spots. Also, make sure you follow me on TikTok as well, Action EJ. This is going to be a fun one, man. Really excited about this one. All episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights gets podcasted to our audio channel. So if you missed last night's episode, have no fear. You can go to, obviously, of course, you can go to YouTube and all the videos still live there. But there's a custom playlist that you can just see all the videos in order. But if you can't watch, maybe you're on the run, maybe you're traveling, maybe you're driving, maybe you're working out, whatever the case may be, you might not be able to watch. Totally fine. All audio versions of this show get podcasted to our podcast channel. You can find that by searching New Generation Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search New Generation Media, and you will find all episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights, plus all the other content we do for New Generation Media. That includes Imperial Broadcast, the Star Wars podcast my brothers do. That includes Hero Talk, this superhero show that we're going to do. By the way, not talking about it yet, but I plan to watch episodes today. Later tonight, hold me to it. I plan to talk about Wonder Man. I didn't get to watch it yet because life has been lifing right now. Everything's going good, and it's a lot of fun. Obviously, you've seen, obviously I was on your Post Sports this weekend, and a lot of great stuff's happening, but haven't been able to get to Wonder Man just yet. Haven't been spoiled by anything, so that's awesome. Fingers crossed. So far, so good. So I'm going to watch at least some episodes. Hopefully I can be able to watch a lot of them so we can talk about Wonder Man a little bit later in the show as well. Maybe also, or rather later tonight. Also later tonight, the Royal Rumble's on Saturday. So we're going to talk some wrestling as well. We're going to break down who we think should win the Royal Rumble, what we're expecting from the event. I'm not happy that this event is happening in Saudi Arabia for those reasons, like for the obvious reasons of why events in Saudi Arabia probably aren't the best. But even outside of that, the Royal Rumble, and I've been to one, and I'll talk about it at length later, but it's such a unique match. It's such a unique pay-per-view / PLE, whatever they call it now. And so much of it involves the crowd reaction, the crowd and how they respond to the people coming out, the surprises and all those things, those viral moments that they're able to create. We know the Saudi crowd is just a different, weird crowd. Sometimes they can be really active and lit. Like, it's not like they're always just like wallflowers. They're always like, not supportive of the shows. But they, it's just not the same. And if it's for a random pay-per-view, a superstar showdown or whatever the other ones they do, it's fine. They did an elimination chamber there. That's fine. I don't have, those pay-per-views I think are fine. I almost think this is going to be more weird than even WrestleMania. Because even with WrestleMania, it's such a big event that I feel like the Saudi fans are definitely wrestling fans. They're definitely WWE fans. It sucks that it's over there, but I'm sure there'll be a fine crowd. This one, I'm concerned because I'm like, okay, if they bring back a legend or they bring back someone who hasn't been around for a long time and is returning, are they going to have the same kind of reaction? Are they going to have the same kind of familiarity? And will that actually impact how they book the match? Will they not want to go to a lot of surprises? Will they try to keep it more close to the vest of just the people you see every Monday and Friday on SmackDown and Raw, which is not what a lot of people who watch the Royal Rumble want to see. What they want to see are the surprises, the returns, and then obviously, the winner be someone that they're supporting. Usually it's somebody that's kind of on the come up. So the Saudi show makes it a little weird. I don't hate it being an afternoon show. I mean, someone who doesn't mind getting a good night's sleep every now and then. And by the way, I'll be hosting the fan this weekend. I haven't posted that yet anywhere on social media, but I'll be posting that probably as soon as the show's over. I'll be hosting the fan this weekend, so that's going to be really exciting as well. So be sure to keep your eyes and ears peeled for that, because that's going to be there's a lot to talk about in New York sports. Y'all have heard my New York sports feel on a lot of these things. John Harbaugh and obviously the Todd Monken situation, Well, we have the Jets and their coaching turmoil, and there's always some hot stuff, baseball stuff to get to, and the Knicks stuff obviously has been red hot considering the whole situation with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So my WFAN show, that's going to be at 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Sunday. So that's that early morning hour show. So if you're looking for me on that content, that's where you're going to find me, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. this weekend on WFAN. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be Sunday morning. So Saturday into Sunday morning is when you're going to find me. So that's where that's going to happen. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. But yeah, man, thanks for listening to the show. Let's watch the show. Let's get it going. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's begin. I want to just kick it right off, man. This is one of those days where, I love doing this because I get to make new rules, break rules that I typically would not do. I can just try different things. And this was, and so again, one of the things we talk about always is, what are you going to do with the idea of how do you, approach a show, right? And there's a whole idea that on Maggie and Pearl show, we had this joke that kind of wasn't a joke, but it'd be like, we started like asking questions on the air about like our plan, like for the next segment or our plan for tomorrow. And Maggie or someone would be like, we're doing a production meeting on the show. Apparently that's what we're doing. And it was kind of like, it was funny and it was a joke, but it also kind of was tongue in cheek, being like, this is probably not something we should do again, or not something we should do tomorrow. Like we should probably, have these ducks in a row. So you don't always like to peel the curtain back, but sometimes I think it's neat. And this is one of those days, to be honest, just the way the day worked last night going into today. I was like, what do I leave with today? Like, what's kind of the big thing to jump on? And you know what? Like, I'm an NBA head. What happened last night in Dallas was important. So, F it. We're going to Dallas. We're going to talk about Cooper Flagg and Kon Kneuppeul. 49 burger for Cooper Flagg. 34 points from Kon Kneuppeul. Mavs lose a close game. Cooper Flagg obviously has the turnover at the end. Kon Kneuppeul makes the defensive play and then makes the free throws to put them ahead. So he was obviously a huge difference in the game. And those guys were right in the middle of it at the very end of the game. But when we want to talk about just in terms of if you're hopeful for the NBA and you're hopeful for the idea that there's going to be life beyond LeBron James and life beyond Stephen Curry, I think you last night was a little peak. Obviously, it's a regular season game in January, and these are two teams that aren't that great. And, Kon Kneuppeul and Cooper Flagg aren't going to win MVP this year. But I do think that this was a peak to what I've been saying a bunch, which is we also, I mentioned I wanted LeBron James to retire for the reasons I mentioned yesterday. That I just think it's time. I think that the fact that he can still play at a high level, but that he's not really in a situation to win a championship. What's the point of moving and keep pushing it forward until you play until the wheels come off? The other aspect, too, is I think the NBA kind of needs to move on from the LeBron, Steph Curry era of basketball. I know those guys are still huge draws. I know those guys still are mega stars. But I also think that their presence, and because they are still so good, is also kind of not allowing new stars to really enter the fray in a way that allows fans to really embrace them and put their arms around them. And what's exciting is I think that there are plenty of great young talented players who absolutely can step into these roles and become the new faces of the NBA. We just don't have the opportunity for them to do that because we're still stuck with LeBron and stuck with Steph Curry. I think both of them. And to me, there's been this concern about what we're going to do. We're not going to have another guy coming up. I'm like, well, first of all, like we have guys in the NBA who are really exciting and really good. Anthony Edwards, really exciting, really good. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, really exciting, really good. And what you're going to see now with this rookie class, and I think also next rookie class, is that there are young kids coming up who also are going to be a problem, who are also going to be going for that throne, who are also going to be people to be dealt with and people to look at and say, these guys are going to be mega draws for the NBA. And for the Dallas Mavericks, the luck that they came up with, luck maybe in quotation marks, but whatever, I'll leave that alone for today. The luck you have to lose Luka Doncic, one of those other exciting young players, have that trade be an unmitigated disaster, but such a disaster that it allows you to somehow finagle your way into the number one overall pick in a draft where there was a generational talent there, and it seems like you hit on the generational talent. Because it wasn't like Cooper Flagg didn't come with any NBA questions. there were definitely NBA questions. I don't think you could find anybody that thought he could be a bust. That would have been insane. But I even had questions about, is he a true, natural, number one option type scorer for like a championship team? And because he's such a great athlete, because he's so good in transition, because so much of what I saw from him in terms of the best parts of his offensive game were actually him finishing, not necessarily him being the initiator. And those questions I think were fair, because most of the guys that end up being those superstar number one pick face of the NBA kind of players are guys that can create their own offense consistently. And at Duke, I thought there were times where you saw the flashes, which is why I think it was totally also respectable to think that he would. And it was a question. I didn't think it was like a doubt about him. But like watching him, I think it was fair to question, like, hey, like, is he going to be able to be that offensive hub? Does he handle well enough? Does he shoot the ball well enough? Like, those were, I think, legitimate questions just based on what you saw at Duke. And what you're seeing in the NBA, he is exceeding my expectations. I thought he'd be good in the NBA his rookie year because he's really athletic, he's really talented, and he's a super aggressive. I didn't think he'd be this dominant a player this early in his career. And last night, 49 points. He had everything going for him. He's so quick off the dribble. So quick off the dribble at a certain point, like, he has a good handle. It's not like his handle's amazing, but he has a good handle. It's one of those things where it doesn't even matter if he doesn't have this crazy back. He's so quick for a guy who's 6'9", 6'10". He's so quick on his first step. You can't stay in front of him. And he's a really good finisher around the basket. He has an array of different layups, floaters. He's just a really advanced scorer from that aspect of the game, finishing, which is why, again, that part of it you knew he was going to be good at. But then last night is going to be kind of like the overall determinator of, like, just how big a superstar Cooper Flagg is going to be. Because if Cooper Flagg is shooting the three ball the way he shoot the ball last night, then this guy's a 30-point scorer. Like but that to me always was the question mark about him, because I know people looked at his shooting at Duke and said, oh, look, he's shooting this percentage at Duke. But I was like, yeah, where the shots were coming from, teams were asking him to shoot those shots wide open, and the nature in which he was getting them, I wasn't convinced that he was going to come in the NBA and shoot the ball from three that well. He also didn't shoot the ball from deep from three. Like, that line at the college line is a little bit shorter than the NBA line. All those things are factors in terms of how you come into the NBA and shoot the ball immediately. And right now, he shoot the ball at 29% from three, which is about what I thought he'd shoot. I thought he'd be about 29% three-point shooter to start the year. And my thing is, can he be? I don't think he can be that and be an NBA superstar. He's going to have to get that up to probably around league average. If he can get up to 34, 35, I think that's more than enough. 29 is not going to get it done. Last night, he shoots 3 for 5 from three. Not just the three-point shot, but the mid-range shot also. Step backs, fadeaways, like those shots that you're talking about. He's making those shots, and if that's something that's going to be a reliable thing he can go to in his bag, the guy's going to be a monster. And that was this last night really was the peak into what Cooper Flagg could potentially become, and he's so young. This is someone who, shout out to Bob Custer in the chat. He's already getting after it. This is someone who's already not even like 19 barely. He just turned 19 years old. He's just turned 19 years old, and I know he's playing against a team that also has a lot of guys that are 20, 21. Like, he's not playing against an older team, but he's playing an NBA game, and he's scoring 49 points. This is just halfway through his first NBA season, and he's 19 years old. This guy is the real deal, and there's no denying that. I think you're looking at him. You want to start placing bets on who becomes the next face of the NBA. I think you're missing the boat if you don't put Cooper Flagg in that conversation. He's an American basketball player, and I will say, and I think it's important, and I don't think it's a negative thing or a bad thing, but I think that there's a novelty factor to him being an American white player being this good. We have not seen an American white player be this level of like a phenom in a long time. And with that's going to come a level of interest. With that's going to come a level of, again, novelty factor about like, ooh, who is this guy? Like, we haven't seen this in a while. And again, some people look at that and say, don't be scared. Oh, what do you mean? It's like, it's not. It's America. It's human nature. It's fine. It's not, as long as you don't make it weird, it's not weird. But I think that aspect absolutely also is going to be a factor here. He's playing in a big market. It's not necessarily I pause in saying it's not a basketball market only because we saw the city almost burned down when they lost Luka Doncic. So maybe it has really become a true basketball market. Maybe it's not a traditional basketball market that we think of, but it is a massive market. And again, I go back to, and he's a Duke Blue Devil, so there are a lot of fans who have also followed his journey from college. There are a lot of fans that have followed his journey from high school. This is a kid who was basically a high school celebrity. He was a high school kind of internet sensation for all the dunks and all the things he was doing on the internet. So a lot of younger fans are very, very familiar with Cooper Flagg. That's a big thing about this too. Because when you talk about quote-unquote faces of the NBA, with a guy like Nikola Jokic, no young fan was paying attention to Nikola Jokic playing basketball as a 300-pound guy in Serbia. If you're talking about Anthony Edwards, high school, yeah, he was well known, not as viral a sensation as Cooper, but he was definitely the number one player. He definitely was well known, but not as famous as Cooper. And then he goes to Georgia, right? Georgia, it kind of has an anonymous. He was very good, but the team wasn't good. A lot of people didn't actually watch those games. They probably only watched his highlights. There's not that carryover effect, right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Canadian. Then he goes to Kentucky, so there's something there. But then Kentucky, but he was there, didn't make a lot of noise. This was kind of after the big swath of all these mega Kentucky stars coming into the NBA that had a lot of fanfare, right? Like a John Wall, like a DeMarcus Cousins, those guys. Well, those guys were very much household names. When Shai was there, this was kind of the beginning of the end of John Calipari at Kentucky in terms of like him putting together like these monster all-time 5-star talent type teams. So he went to Kentucky, but he doesn't have the same fanfare that John Wall, those guys had. He wasn't a number one pick, so he doesn't have that going for him either, like Anthony Edwards or Cooper Flagg. So these other guys have things that kind of are working against them, and then Shai is a below the rim guy too. So then there's that aspect of just like the wow factor. I think his game is still fun to watch. There are a lot of kids who I think love watching Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because of the handle, because of the jump shot, because of the bag. But he's not going to jump over anybody, right? That's not his game. Cooper has everything. He has Duke. He has high school sensations. I mean, young fans have been following him since he was 15, 16 years old. He has the game. He has the athleticism in terms of the above the rim stuff. He had a monster dunk last night. He has everything you would want, everything you would ask for. Duke Blue Devil. So now he has a swath of Duke's alumni network. I would argue like kind of runs the country. Like they're very influential. They're everywhere. Like and they have a massive fan base. So you even forget about their alumni network. He has everything that you would probably look for if you were asking for someone to be the face of a sport. Now, the only question mark at this point is, will he fulfill his potential? Because he's still 19 years old, right? Now, if you're telling me a guy who's 19 years old, averaging 19 points in the NBA, shooting 48% from the field, and is able to score 49 points in an NBA game, I feel pretty good that guy will be okay. I feel pretty good that a guy's going to be okay. I would. But it's always a question mark. You just never know. I've seen guys have phenomenal rookie seasons. Like, I remember Tyreek Evans from the Sacramento Kings. His rookie year was so good. He was putting up stats that legitimately, when they were saying the things he was accomplishing, it was comparable in terms of guards or swing players to the likes of Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and LeBron James. Tyreek Evans' rookie year was phenomenal. And for whatever reason, it just didn't work out for him. He was a 18, 19-year-old kid playing in the NBA, putting up these big numbers. So it's not to say that it's a guarantee because he's this good as a rookie that he's automatically going to become the kind of player that's necessary or has a good enough game to be the face of the NBA. But just the projection alone of what you're seeing from Cooper Flagg, I wouldn't bet against this guy. I would not bet against this guy. He'd be somebody that you would have to look at this and say, if you're Adam Silver, you're like, thank goodness. I feel like we got good players, but so many people in the media and some fans keep making cases why it can't be Wemby because he's French. It can't be Ant-Man because he's too much of a wild boy. He plays in Minnesota. It can't be blah, blah, blah. Well, what are you going to say about this guy? 19 years old, scoring 49 points, dunking on cats, handle, look like he's getting better and better by the game. Now he can shoot, apparently. Now it looks like his jump shot's coming together. This guy's awesome. And Dallas, they really lucked out. They're really in a fortunate spot because I expect that he's going to become the superstar people think he's going to be just from my assessment of watching him all season. Again, he has exceeded my expectations. He's a star. And I can't wait to continue to see his growth as he continues to move forward. And then, by the way, just this game and like Kon Kneuppeul also, it's early, like I said, just like I mentioned Tyreek Evans, but Kon Kneuppeul also having a phenomenal season. Kon Kneuppeul may go down, considering how this is going so far. I feel like my draft resume is pretty good. You're going to have hits. You're going to have massive misses. That's just the name of the game. So I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say, oh, I've never gotten a guy wrong. I've gotten plenty of guys wrong. And that's where I'm going with this. Kon Kneuppeul may go down as one of the biggest misses for me in terms of how good an NBA player he was going to be. I watched him at Duke. I was familiar with, obviously, with him coming up through high school. I'm stunned that he's this good a player. And I don't feel like he was even this good at Duke. It's actually kind of crazy. Like, to me, I looked at Kneuppeul, and the problem I had was I wasn't sure if his handle was good enough, combined with what I felt like was a lack of real burst to get by people that would allow him to get easy shots. And while he was a very good shooter at Duke, I think he leaned more towards streaky than being actual shooter. Like we talked about the dynamic of shooter versus scorer. I felt like he actually was more of a scorer than a shooter. And I didn't know if his scorer bag was enough to do the things he needed to do in the NBA to be a star. I thought maybe role player. I thought maybe solid player. I thought he was overdrafted where he was. I thought that not drafting Ace Bailey over him was a massive mistake, despite the fact that the Hornets have a bunch of guys that are kind of like Ace Bailey. Kon Kneuppeul, also averaging about 19 points, shooting 42% from three, shooting 48% from the field. This is going to be, Cooper is out, spoiler alert, Cooper Flagg is going to win the Rookie of the Year. But what I will say is, it should not be that much of a foregone conclusion because of how great Kon Kneuppeul has been. It shouldn't. Kon Kneuppeul is, his numbers, band for band, he basically was band for band for Cooper Flagg last night. His numbers, band for band, are right there with Cooper Flagg. His team is in a better position in terms of making the playoffs potentially than Cooper Flagg. There's no reason why he shouldn't be a part of the conversation about Rookie of the Year. And I also think VJ Escombe, while he's definitely third right now, I don't think that he's someone that should just be completely just dismissed when it comes to the Rookie of the Year situation. He's playing on a team that is in a much more situation of being in the playoffs, right? Like, the Sixers are a solid playoff team. I think if they make the play-in, they're probably a 7, but you feel like they probably get it. They're going to land somewhere probably between 4 and 7 when it comes to the playoffs. So VJ Escobe's been phenomenal as well. His stats don't quite stack up, so he's a distant third. But in any other year, he would also be a viable candidate for Rookie of the Year. But Cooper's going to win it because he's Cooper Flagg. He's going to be the anointed one because of the superstardom that I think other folks are going to now begin to realize what we're about to witness. And then Kon Kneuppeul plays for the Charlotte Hornets, so I think he's going to be easy to kind of cast away. But we shouldn't. We shouldn't be casting him away. Kon Kneuppeul has been absolutely awesome for the Charlotte Hornets. I'm surprised at how good he has been, but he deserves a lot of credit, man. He's really good defensively. That was something that I think a lot of people also had question marks. He's solid defensively. He's not someone you can pick on, and he is. He's a scorer and a shooter. That's what makes him. That's why this thing is so crazy. Because to me, I was like, I think he's more of a short scorer than an actual natural shooter. And I don't know if his bag is that good. A, his bag is good enough, as we learned. And B, the guy's also a sniper. Like, he is an excellent shooter. So he is in that bag where he can just get off his shot in any situation, it seems like. He is so crafty. And the guy just knows how to put the ball in the basket. He's also going to be, I think, a future all-star kind of player. That's what he looks like. And the fact that Duke had both of these guys in the same year is crazy, considering Kneuppeul was a top 10 recruit as well, 5-star recruit. But again, was not considered necessarily 1A, 1B to Cooper Flagg. It was Cooper Flagg and then Kon Kneuppeul from the recruiting class. Then when you watch Duke play, it was clear hierarchy there. And Kneuppeul, man, he's the real deal too. Shout out to him. Shout out to his team, because I feel like I've seen him improve since last season. And to see guys, both players, because it's really both of them, they both to me look better than they did in college, and that happens sometimes. It's crazy and it's weird, and there are reasons why I wasn't sure either guy profiled like that, because it happens a lot, where a guy could be a certain kind of player, and then he gets to the NBA, and you're like, wow, this guy's way more than we realize. Like, he's a better player in college than he is in the NBA. Now, sometimes it's, hey, like now he gets to do this professionally, and all he's been doing all summer since his season ended was just working on his game, and now he's super sharp. That happens, but sometimes it's also just the college game is a very different game than the NBA. It's not as wide open. The game is actually way more physical, which sounds kind of crazy, but it's true. And not necessarily that the guys are stronger, but you can just get away with a lot more grabbing. You can get away with a lot more holding around away from the ball. They've tried to kind of limit some of that stuff, but it's still there. And because there isn't as much shooting, just because the shooting isn't as good in college, this floor is not as spaced. So actually getting to the rim in college actually can be harder, because everyone's just packing the paint. They're daring you to shoot. There are only a few teams that can put 5 guys on the floor at the same time that can shoot. So there are reasons sometimes why guys can play in that environment and not show everything they can do, but then they get into an NBA environment where everyone can shoot. So therefore, there's a lot of space if you can get by your man, and if you have the craft to finish one-on-one. Or there are guys who are super athletic that in a more open game, like VJ Edgecombe is a great example of that. Like, Edgecombe has been a much better NBA player than he was a college player. But it makes sense. He's playing on a team that has 4, like when Embiid's out there, 5 guys that can shoot. He's also playing with an elite point guard who also is super fast, just like him. So that means they're going to get out in transition. That means he's going to also be probably going up against the other team's second best perimeter defender, maybe even third if they're putting that guy on Paul George, if the guy has more size. So he's cooking these like secondary type defender guys. He's getting an open floor way more because the Sixers could run with him and Maxey. Like, there's reasons why some guys just profile as better NBA players than college players. It's actually why I kept my friend Andrew Brilloff kept telling him, like, he was very down on the Edgecombe pick. I'm like, Edgecombe will probably be fine. Like, I think I get your concerns. I get why you look at him. I'm not sure, but his athleticism, his profile, like to me, he reminded me of a young Russell Westbrook. That's how he profiled to me. And I think if you watch him, that's kind of how he looks. Like, you know, maybe not like as many assists, and he shoots the ball probably a little better from outside, but that just crazy speed, that athleticism that's just through the roof, and like came in and you watch it, Russell Westbrook at UCLA, you're like, he's athletic, but like can't really shoot. He's almost like a forward playing guard, because like he's just kind of like a run and jump kind of guy. Like I also didn't really see the vision with Russ, to be honest. But again, we now learn and say, oh wait, no, in the NBA game where he's the point guard, this is a different game, and he's playing with Kevin Durant. This is a different situation than him plotting up and down the court with Kevin Love as your power forward center, right? So there are guys that you get to the NBA and it's just a different game. I wasn't sure if Cooper Flagg or Kon Kneuppeul profiled like that. I wasn't sure if Cooper Flagg shot well enough for people to not sag off of him and not just dare him to shoot. It turns out he's so good off the dribble and so good at getting past people, it doesn't matter. It matters a little bit, but not to the point where it's really debilitating him in any way. And with Kon Kneuppeul, I didn't think that he would be able to beat guys one-on-one the way he is regularly. So, and he's shooting the ball. I know he's a good shooter. I didn't think he was just a good shooter. So, these guys have profiled as also better players than they were when they were in college. Cooper Flagg, Cooper Flagg was amazing at Duke. I think he's been better at with the Mavs. Kon Kneuppeul was not even close in terms of what the player he was at Duke and who he is in the NBA. He's a much better player in the NBA game. So there's a lot of excitement to be had with these guys. And I mentioned Edgecombe. Edgecombe, I don't think it's like a face the NBA type guy, but he also looks like a multiple-time future All-Star. So this rookie class is bonkers. And I've already told you about this class coming up. Darren Peterson, who, by the way, has a showdown coming up with A.J. DeBonta this weekend. That is going to be a war. That is going to be must-watch television. Kansas, BYU. That's going to be huge, right? Like, those two guys also look like future NBA stars. Caleb Wilson from North Carolina looks like a future star. I mentioned Keaton Vlogler from Illinois had 40-plus points. Kingston Fleming's had 40 points over the weekend. Like, there are all these different young players. Cameron Boozer, the next big dookie that I think is going to get a lot of attention in the NBA, part because he's a legacy. His dad, of course, is Carlos Boozer. The new generation is coming. The next generation of NBA stars is coming. Some of these guys are already here. Anthony Edwards, Wemby, those young guys like that. Some of these guys are here, and they're going to win championships and win MVPs and be part of the conversations. But the NBA is going to be just fine. You were in a thing where, like, I don't know what the world's going to be like without LeBron James and Steph. And it goes both ways. There's some people that are like, they're actually tired of LeBron and tired of Steph, but they don't see it yet with any of these other guys. Give it time. Give it time. If you watched last night, if you haven't, first of all, shout out to the NBA. They put those clips. There's probably 7 different ways just from the NBA's account to watch clips from that game on YouTube. They got like the last 4 minutes. They got a full game breakdown. They got a just Cooper Flagg and Kon Kneuppeul buckets video. Because I'm trying to get prepared for the show, and I'm like, they got like I had to pick a litter in terms of how I wanted to watch this game from last night. And again, it's worth watching because these kids were absolutely phenomenal. These young men. Shout out to Cooper Flagg. Shout out to Kon Kneuppeul. Buy your Cooper stuff. I mean, I don't know if the stock's probably through the roof at this point, but if you were late on this game, get on the Cooper Flagg train now. He's quickly becoming must-watch stuff in the NBA. Phenomenal night for him last night in the association. Let's get some more NBA news, and this is an interesting aspect. Speaking about someone like Anthony Edwards and Giannis Antetokounmpo, someone who maybe hasn't been the face of the NBA, but that's definitely has been a face of the NBA. There's been some reporting about Giannis Antetokounmpo and his future as he is now in this position where he is officially on the trade market. And there are questions about where he's going to land if there is a trade that's going to happen prior to the trade deadline. We know that there are aggressive suitors. They have been identified. The New York Knicks are one. The Miami Heat are one. The Golden State Warriors are one. And then there's a fourth team. And this is all identified by Shams Charania. That I think from the surface has been kind of odd. But they are apparently an aggressive suitor and part of this. And that is the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the T-Wolves are odd for multiple reasons. Number one, the T-Wolves, and it's no disrespect to Minneapolis or Minnesota at all, but they play in a smaller market and they play in a city where most NBA players aren't running to. It's a winter sport, and Minnesota is probably the coldest, snowiest place you can play. These are not guys that typically run to snowy, cold places unless it's Chicago or New York. So it has that going against them. Small market, that going against them. And then from a actual team building standpoint, they don't have really any tradable picks. Remember, they made that what now appears to be almost catastrophic trade for Rudy Gobert. Catastrophic may be strong because he's been a important player for them, and they've gone to conference finals twice. It hasn't been like they got nothing out of it, but considering the player he is, the fact that they gave all those first-round picks remains kind of insane. Because of that trade, they don't really have any picks to trade. So if you're the Bucks, and you're looking at the T-Wolves, you're like, all right, I need some picks and stuff. We're not going to get from the T-Wolves. They're a young player. They have some young players, like Jaden McDaniels would be the one. The joke, they have KD, but we got Jaden McDaniels. Infamous Anthony Edwards quote. Jaden McDaniels is probably someone that would be of interest. I don't think he's a future superstar, but it could be a future fringe star, maybe. That I'm not 100% sure. But something around there maybe. Good player, really good defensive player. And he is young, so that he has that going for him as well. But I'm not totally convinced that he's a star, but he's a good young player. He'd be someone that you would probably look at and say, okay, that's somebody. The rest of their guys, Rob Dillingham hasn't really hit. He was a high pick, and they traded for him. Terrence Shannon has shown signs of things, but he's an older player for a second-year guy. I think he's 24, 25. And then there's some baggage from college. I don't know how much that would scare a team off, but that's there. So it's not like a team they have a coffer of great young talent outside of Anthony Edwards, of course, and like all these draft picks. But it seems like the reason why they are a part of this mix in a very real, serious way is because Giannis Antetokounmpo is apparently very interested in playing with Anthony Edwards. And Shams Charania mentioned them as a team. And then I want to hear from Brian Windhorst, who was on Get Up yesterday, talking about this interest being very real with Giannis and the T-Wolves.
And Shams mentioned that Minnesota Timberwolves. He is not mentioning that for no reason. This is something, from what I understand, that Giannis has interested in. The Timberwolves don't have draft picks and don't have the young players. They'd have to center around veteran players, but that is something that we should keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality, is they don't have the young players, but like Julius Randle plus McDaniels is probably where you're beginning in terms of a trade with somebody. And similar to the Knicks, they're in a similar spot where I think it's not necessarily the young players. They have pretty good veterans, and maybe we could send these guys somewhere else to get the picks that would then appease Milwaukee. That is going to be their game plan. But all of this, I say to the instance that it's why I don't think Giannis is going to eventually be a Knick. That's the gut feeling I have right now. I don't want to make this all about the Knicks. I want to talk about the T-Wolves aspect in a second too. But that's kind of the reason why. Because I don't know how he feels about the Warriors. The Warriors really want him. I think Giannis is not a dummy. I think he knows the landscape of the Western Conference. And I think he knows he can read a birth certificate. he can read a birth date. And I think he looks at the age of Draymond Green and Stephen Curry. And he's like, what's going to happen after I carry you guys? Maybe we carry you to the championship. But, I mean, that's not even guaranteed considering how good the West is. Say, okay, I take you to the conference finals and we get curb stomped by the Thunder. What's going to happen when you guys retire? And the Warriors would be like, I don't know, buddy, because they would have had to have given up all their picks for Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's not like Giannis necessarily has this infinite window to win a championship, but considering he's 31 right now, I think it's probably fair to say he thinks he probably has in his body. He probably feels like he has a 4-year window. That may be generous. 3 is probably more likely. 31 and 34 feels about fair. I can see him being 34, still being, if not the best player, the second best player on a great team that can win a championship. Those guys ain't going to be there when he's 34. Just newsflash to everybody. So the Warriors may just entice the Minnesota Timberwolves enough to be like, you know what, like they got all the picks. They're the only team of these teams we're talking to that have all their picks, so we'll just take it. That might be the reality. And there's been reporting that the Warriors have the most enticing package. You never know who that's coming from, but that has been the reporting that's been happening, that's been put out there. But I think Giannis, is very open to other places outside of the Knicks. I think he's open to the T-Wolves. I think everyone's always open to Miami. It's Miami. I saw there was an interesting report about the idea that he's interested in Miami, but is not loving the idea of Pat Riley, which is actually really interesting. Because Pat Riley's always actually been the appeal for a lot of players. That he's the guy you actually want to go and get into that system and play for because he's the guy that produces champions. And that's one of the main reasons LeBron went to Miami, was because Pat Riley came to him in that meeting, put the rings on the table, and laid out the vision for how LeBron and Wade and Bosh could become iconic. And it was enticing. Pat Riley when it comes to just sports figures, sports characters, and charisma, he is among the top that have ever done this in this profession, in all sports. That's just the quote-unquote riz that this guy has had. But I really feel like his reputation in his older age now has taken a hit for how things have gone with Jimmy Butler. And the stories we've heard more about like maybe kind of who the real Pat Riley is, because we kind of hear like all the good stories and all the legendary stories about Pat Riley. You know, Maggie has one that she mentions on Maggie Pro when she first met Pat Riley. But now we're starting to know more basketball players have podcasts. There's actually better reporting, more people getting stuff out, and it's like, oh, playing for Pat Riley, it actually doesn't sound very fun. He sounds like kind of a drill sergeant, and playing over there almost looks like you're in the military. It sounds like you're in the military. Like, I gotta get what percentage of body fat I have to get on in order to even get on the court for the Heat? I gotta do what to play for the Miami Heat for Pat Riley? These are his rules. LeBron James wasn't allowed to have cookies and ice cream on a plane because they lost a couple of games. Like, they're hearing this stuff and like, that doesn't sound like South Beach. That doesn't sound like Miami fun. Oh, he's ripping Jimmy Butler in public. Jimmy Butler is his own thing, and he has his own thing going on. And I'm not saying he's definitely not a perfect angel in this regard, probably, but still, I'm like, these guys are like, I thought Pat Riley was Mr. Riz. I thought he was Mr. Fun. I thought going down there was about Showtime and stuff. Like, I didn't know. Yeah, I know his Knicks teams were rough and tumble. They want to fight other people, but I didn't think he'd be tough against me. I think Giannis, apparently, you know, it's been like that. It's been was reporting was that the lack of family atmosphere with the Miami Heat, because of the way Pat Riley runs the organization, is actually not appealing to him. He is someone, obviously, his brothers have been on his team. He's someone who has a big family, and I think probably, especially considering he's 31 and he's already won a title, probably does want a lot of leeway to kind of like do his own thing. And if that means how he trains, how he works out, the kind of shape he comes into camp, like those are things that he doesn't want to be dictated to. He wants to just do it himself. And that's not how things are ever going to be run in Miami as long as Pat Riley's there. It's just not. That's just not how he operates. And Eric Spoelstra, the head coach, who and I don't want to like take ownership away from Spoelstra. He is the head coach, and he is definitely front and center as well as a coach. And a lot of that is because he has the 100% backing of Pat Riley, but he's lockstep in a lot of this stuff. He may do it with a more of a nicer smile. He may not be quite as aggressive, but he's lockstep in that. And apparently Giannis is like, I love Miami. I love the idea of going down there, and I love Bam. We talked about how he's also talked to Bam Adebayo. Do I want to be part of the quote-unquote Heat culture? Heat culture doesn't sound that fun anymore. And also, where they're at as a team, it doesn't seem like before when it was LeBron. Maybe LeBron knew all that stuff. He's like, yeah, but I'm playing with Bosh and Wade, and it's South Beach, so I don't care if I gotta have 2% body fat coming into a season. I'm LeBron James. I'm built out of granite. I'll be fine, right? But again, that's a different stage of his career. That's a different aspect of his life. Like, you know, he's a young player trying to get his first title. Like, Giannis is an older player who's trying to just like tack on and extend his championship window by going to an elite team. The Heat aren't an elite team, and he's gonna have to put up all this crap. That reportedly he's thinking about that, saying, I don't know if that's something I want to do. So, but he is interested in Miami. So it makes this thing complicated. It's gonna make this very fascinating. My hunch is that he's not going to the Knicks. But I think there's a greater chance that maybe people are willing to accept that he doesn't get traded yet. Because I don't think he really wants to go to the Warriors. And I think if he wanted to go to the Warriors, he'd be there. Because I don't expect that any of these teams will be able to get the draft compensation needed to match what the Warriors have. Even if the T-Wolves package Randall and McDaniels and send them somewhere, you're not getting 4 first-round picks. Could you get 2? Maybe could you get 3? Maybe. Maybe you say, maybe Randall's worth 1, maybe McDaniel's worth 2. It's got to be the right deal, though, and you got to have the right money to match, and it's not a lot of time. Again, this is not like you have all summer. You have essentially a week to figure this out, less than a week to figure this out. I don't know if they have the capital to do that. The Knicks, I think, also are in a similar issue where, like, can they get some first-round picks moving around, some combination of Cat and Bridges? Yes, I think they should be able to. How many? The most I can think of is probably 2. Is that going to get you enough for Giannis? 2 first-round picks? I don't really see that, and they have no young players to really give away. So, and then I mentioned, the Heat. They have 2 first-round picks currently, so that gives them a little bit of a thing. But then, is Milwaukee see like Tyler Hero as this guy they can really build around and a guy that they can promote? They might, and that's going to be the one of the teams I think that I look at and I say this is going to be, something that could make sense for the Bucks and the Heat if they want to make this happen. The question now becomes like, is Giannis going to be full on board? But for the T-Wolves, I do think that logically speaking, it makes sense for them to wait. You're going to get more if you wait in this offseason. Giannis doesn't want to wait. He wants to try to compete for a championship now. He doesn't want to waste a year. And as my good friend Tommy Beer pointed out, and I'm glad he pointed it out because I always kind of forget to mention it, is Giannis has to be with a team for a certain amount of time in order to sign a Supermax extension. And best believe he's going to want a Supermax extension because nobody's turning down $65, $70 million a year. That's what it's going to cost. So he wants to get this trade to happen. And I think that a lot of this buzz that you're seeing, yes, the Bucks I think are playing ball, but I think a lot of this is him really pushing his thumb on the scale. Be like, we got to get this thing done, and we got to get this thing done kind of like right now. And I think the fact that Rich Paul has apparently been lurking in the wings to see if maybe he could be the person that facilitates this. Obviously, he's not because he's still not Giannis' agent, and Alex Serratis is still running the show. So it seems like that's going to have to wait to the offseason if that's the case, or it seems like to me like maybe Alex Serratis kind of got a, lit a fire under his ass with Giannis being like, hey, I need to get this money. I may go to a different guy. Rich Paul saying he can get me to New York or get me to one of these places. Like, you got to figure this crap out. And I think now you're starting to see things move. I'm still holding out how desperate the Bucks are to just be done with this thing. Because the other aspect of this, too, is if he's injured, how much problems can he really cause post-deadline? Because I think some of the problem you have with a lot of these players is they're not injured. They're healthy. They're playing for your team. So they have to answer questions by the media. They're playing in games. Like, it's just so much. They have to go still through the breakneck aspect of the NBA schedule with this whole elephant in the room of, like, this person doesn't want to be there and they've requested a trade, and everyone having to deal with that for the rest of the season. And sometimes it's too much of a burden to bear to let this thing continue. So they just say, you know what, F it, let's just get this done right now. But if he's injured, and I believe the plan will be to probably shut him down if the Bucks fall out of favor with this whole Eastern Conference playoff situation, which I think is possible considering where they stand right now. Giannis, it's odd that we still also don't know how injured he is. Like, the Bucks, have not said what his timetable is. He's the only one saying what his timetable is, which is quite funny. But, like, if it is indeed a 4 to 6 week injury, we're talking about him being out for a month, which means he would be back early May, early March, late February. The Bucks right now are 18-28. They are 4 games out of the play-in, and they've lost 4 in a row, and they won't have Giannis for at least the next 10 games. This thing could get out of hand. They absolutely could end up being, by the time he quote unquote is ready to come back, they could be down 7-8 games in the standings when it comes to the play-in, and it'd be toast. There'd be no reason to put him out there on the basketball floor. So from the Bucks standpoint, from the motivation to trade him right now, my only question would be, what's the big deal if he isn't around the building? If he's not around and you're just languishing this season away trying to tank, and he's not around, he can't cause really issues. He's not around. He's not going to be talking to people. Could he start calling up podcasts and stuff and say, I'm doing, like, he could if he really wants to be a jerk about it. And I say jerk about it, this is all business, facetiously he'd be jerk about it. But, like, if he doesn't want to do that, what's the harm in not trading him? He's not gonna. There's no. And it's funny because we've seen these stories about this cloud that's hanging over the Milwaukee head, and Sean Schrader keeps pointing to this tension around the team, around this thing. And yeah, I think it's tension because he probably wants to go to a new team and sign a new extension soon, so he's putting pressure. But once that ends, once We get past the trade deadline and he's not traded. Therefore, he's not going to be able to get his extension. And he's also hurt, so he's not around the team or playing. What difference does it make? I don't think it really does. So my thought is that John Horst and that crew, they'll look out for themselves in the best way. And if they're going to do that, then it probably means that he'll probably remain a Buck and then be traded in the offseason. But there is a lot of smoke. People are trying. There's no doubt about that. People are definitely trying when it comes to this whole situation with Giannis. They're trying to make this happen because I think he was trying to make this happen. So it's going to be a interesting story to continue following. Again, this is 40 Days, 40 Nights. Your boy EJ Stewart here, rocking with you. This is, of course, day 15. We're wrapping up week 2 this week. It's going to be 5 weeks of this, right? I keep doing that math. I think it's 5 weeks. Maybe it's more. I don't know. Either way, we're rocking, man. It's been a lot of fun. Of course, if you're watching the show, make sure you subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. Make sure you give a like, thumbs up. All of that stuff really helps us. Comment in the comment section. That helps us as well. Again, subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. Make sure you, of course, just follow me on X, EJ_Stewart, where we're also streaming live. Shout out to folks watching me on X. Greatly appreciate you guys as always. And I'm also streaming live on Instagram, Action EJ. Make sure you follow me there. And, of course, obviously, every episode gets podcasted on our audio podcast channel, New Generation Podcast Network. You can get that wherever you get your podcast. Just going into the comment section real quick. We had the first comment we had today was from Hakeem the Dream. Is this the actual Hakeem Olajuwon? I'm not sure. I don't know. But shout out to Hakeem the Dream. Said the NBA today is a glorified 3-point contest. Yes. Here's the thing about that. The whole everybody shoots threes thing is not something that really bothers me that much. But I think it is a problem, and I'll explain that. So for me, maybe it's just because I'm thinking about the strategy of basketball. This is how you're going to have to probably win games until they figure out the next loophole in trying to win games. So it doesn't bother me that people are playing this way. This is what you got to play to win. And I'm not like, I'm marveled by guys shooting threes, but like guys shooting the ball impressively is still impressive to me. It just is. So it doesn't bother me from an aesthetic standpoint. I do think, though, the NBA has a problem from an aesthetic standpoint. And I think people think that they're complaining about threes, but what they're actually complaining about is everyone's playing the same. That's what it is. Because in the 90s, it was something else. In the 90s, it was, everyone's just brutalizing each other. This is basketball, not basketball. We need to have more spacing. We need to have more pace. We need to have more passing. It's too much of an isolation league, right? Like, it's always something. But that something comes from the NBA being a copycat league and just copying whatever someone else is doing. So the 80s was a lot of up and down basketball. It was very physical, but it was a lot of up and down basketball. And then the 90s, the game got bogged down with physicality. Like, the Detroit Pistons showed in the late 80s that could work to win a championship. Late 80s, early 90s, that could win a championship. And then Michael Jordan, the ultimate isolation player, came into the fray. And the Knicks, these teams that were facing them, realized the only shot you had was to be super physical against him and these other teams, much like the Pistons were. So the whole NBA then became just like a rough and tumble, half-court, bogged down, isolation, back down kind of league. And people couldn't stand that. People complained. They said, this is not basketball. This is a visually ugly game to watch. Teams are scoring in the 80s, and we're watching NBA championship games and finals being scores 85, 79. Like, we're watching games that just aren't that fun. So the NBA, they adjusted. They said, okay, you can play zone. They changed the rules. They obviously, Allen Iverson came in the league. He's doing crazy carrying crossovers. And like, you can't do that anymore. They tried to limit all aspects of the game that made it make sense to be an isolation scorer type league. Because you see all the shooting right now, especially guys shooting off the dribble, it was much harder to do that because people were able to grab you and hold you when it came to off the ball more. and guys handling. Like Steph Curry, now I'm of the belief any star player that's playing today will be a star player in any era, and vice versa. They may have to have lived in that era and learned how the game was played in that era, but they would still be a star. But like someone like Steph Curry, and why he's so extremely difficult to handle, in part is because his ball handling is so unique and so good, and he can shoot from anywhere off the dribble, which is like unheard of before recently. That because you can't touch him, you can't actually put a hand on him, he can shoot from anywhere. If he was playing in the 90s, like that kind of player, like you would try to pick him up full court and you would put your hands on him and not allow him to get kind of clean looks at the basket while he's handling and crossing and doing all that stuff. Like you see all the space he has when he's doing that stuff. You can do that stuff if you can't put your hands on somebody because he's too quick to play him up too close. He'll blow right by you. So it's just the rules and the way the game's being played. But what I think is actually the problem, and I think what actually is, because now this is the game that essentially fans said they wanted. What you're seeing right now is what fans have been asking for from like the complaints of the 90s and early 2000s. This game's too isolation. They don't pass the ball. The shooting's terrible. Like those were the complaints. And now we're years and years ahead, and the NBA has made rules that have forced teams to adjust, and then players have had to adjust in terms of like how they stay in the league. How do you become an NBA player? Like there was a time where you could never have to learn how to shoot an NBA three-point shot. You could be a guard and never shoot an NBA three-point shot and be an NBA like 10, 15-year vet. It was not something that you needed. I can't imagine being a point guard in the NBA or even like a wing in the NBA and then say I'm going to have a 15-year career and I can't shoot a lick. It's unheard of, but it was the case just 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So now, what I think is the concern, what I think is actually what you guys are complaining about, is there's too much uniformity in how everyone is playing. Because what I enjoyed about the NBA growing up as a kid is, while yes, there were like the rough and tumble team, a lot of it was like isolation ball. What I also enjoyed was, and you saw it more back then than I think you do today, is there was some variance as to how teams played. Like, if the Mavs with Don Nelson were going up against the Indiana Pacers, coached by Rick Carlisle with Ron Artest and Jermaine O'Neal, there's a clash of style that's going to make that match interesting. Is Don Nelson's up-in-tempo, he kind of plays like how the NBA guys play now. Up-tempo, shooting threes, finesse kind of style basketball. What are they going to do against a rough-and-tumble physical team like the Indiana Pacers? Tune in on NBC at 3 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday afternoon. And I'm watching. I'm seated. I want to see how this match is going to go down. Those great matchups between the Lakers and the Kings in the NBA Eastern. I said NBA Finals almost because it basically was, but in the Western Conference Finals, how is the Lakers and this half-court team and the triangle offense and how they play going to match up against this really swing the ball, move the ball, not athletic so much, but swing the ball, ball movement, player movement, up-tempo style of the Sacramento Kings? Tune in Sunday at 6 p.m. for Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals, and you're seated. Because teams weren't all playing the same way. Even back to, like the 90s, like when Run TMC, I know I mentioned Don Nelson again, but Run TMC is playing, if they're playing the Knicks, like, okay, this is going to be, how is this going to go? In some games, Run TMC and the Warriors would run the Knicks out of the gym. Some games, they'd be bogged down and the Knicks would win. And you didn't know what to expect. I think when you say it's a glorified three-point contest, I think like the connotation to that is like, well, everybody is playing the same. So therefore, yes, it looks like you're complaining because it's like, well, everybody's doing the same thing. And where there's no variance. There is no team that's saying, hey, we're not going to try to shoot a lot of threes. Our strategy is to just try to beat you at the rim or try to play a lot of post-ups. They know that now just the analytics and just the way the game is advanced, they know that is not an efficient way to play basketball. So no one's ever going to try to play that way right now. So what it's led to is this becoming like a super, super copycatted league. So all these teams are playing the same way. So when people complain about, oh, the three ball, I hate that everyone shoots a three. Yes, you're complaining about everybody shooting three, but I think what you're actually more complaining about is that everyone's playing the same. if there were more teams that didn't shoot 3-point shots like this and didn't play the same kind of style of play, I actually think you'd be like, oh, okay, like it's cool that that team shoots a lot of threes and then like this team doesn't. And then when they play each other, it's fun. Like when I grew up, I just felt like they were like teams had certain styles. Like in fact, like I think about this, like growing up, and I don't know why this was the case, but growing up, like there was like idea, oh, the Western Conference always had the high scoring teams, and the Eastern Conference always was more half court, slow paced kind of teams, more physical basketball. Don't know why that was the case, but it seemed to work. It seemed to be the case. Like the Suns had like Jason Kidd, and they were up and down, and the Suns had Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, and they were up and down. Like they just seemed to be more points and more excitement on the Western Conference. It's just how it seemed to work when I was a kid. In the East, you had the Heat and the Knicks, the Bulls. Like these were half-court teams. These were slow-down teams. And the Jazz in the West were like the outlier. Like they were like one team that was kind of half-court and was kind of bog you down, but they were really efficient. So they still scored the ball really well because their offense was so well executed. And again, it added character to the league. But to me, that it added a flair, it added a flavor, it added like a dimension where like, oh, like yeah, like it was crazy. Like watch like the Knicks. Like I'm watching Knicks. I'm rooting for Knicks as a kid, and they got a matchup against the Sacramento Kings and like Chris Webber and Jason Williams, and they're just getting run out the gym. You're just like, we're a good team. We won 50 games this year, but like their style against that Kings team, like that night didn't work out. The Kings shoot the ball extremely well. They're getting up and down the court. They're just blowing by Knicks and all that physicality crap, and they're handing them their head. And it was like, it was compelling. I think what these NBA fans, what Hakeem the Dream, maybe this is the real Hakeem Olajuwon. If it is, if you want to come on the show, I'd be glad to have you on the show. Assuming it's not, obviously, of course, just joking. But no, I think that what a lot of people actually are complaining about, I don't think it actually is like everyone shooting threes. It's deeper than that. It's that everyone plays the same. Because that's always the complaint. In the history of the NBA, that's always the complaint. It always comes down to it's something someone else is all doing. People didn't like that everybody was fouling and playing physical all the time. People didn't like that the game was too isolation. There was always something about the game that people wanted to change, and in part because there was too many of guys trying to play the same way. And what ends up happening is the teams that don't have the guys that can do that become like unwatchable. Or games where teams aren't able to execute that become unwatchable. So like for the three ball, like, there are games where like teams struggle from three. Like I was just with New York Post Sports this week, and we were doing the Knicks Raptors game. That ended up being a game where Knicks shot the ball well in the second half. But that first half, both teams couldn't buy a basket. And when you have those games when they're just hoisting threes and neither team can hit a shot, those become very tough to watch. It's like, all right, what are we doing? Because now they're low percentage shots, and it's just seeing the team run up down, you shoot a three, you miss, run down, you shoot a three, you miss. Those become tough to watch. So and I've said that I feel like the NBA should be way more aggressive in trying to address this. My plans and my thing. Now, Adam Silver is comatose. He's a commissioner who seems to think that he has no agency in how people evaluate his own league. But I've always been a proponent for a couple of things. I say back up the three-point line. I know you say, well, guys shoot from anywhere. If you back up the three-point line to 30 feet out, not everybody can shoot from 30 feet out right now at an efficient level. Can some guys make those shots? Definitely. Some guys can make it at an efficient level. Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, there are guys that have that kind of range. Tyrese Maxey's now even become one of those guys. But most guys can't shoot out there like that. So what will happen is some teams may not adjust. And they'll say, oh, we're just going to keep shooting threes. And they're going to see their offense plummet. And they're going to have literally no choice but to come up with another way to try to score and try to be efficient, try to have a different game plan. And then what happens is you have variance. I say back in the three-point line, and I would even consider eliminating the corner three. Because the corner three has become such an easy shot, and it's such a shot that everyone hunts because it's such an easy shot. Again, that leads to everyone playing the same way. Back up the line, eliminate the corner three. Now you have a lot more of a two-point game. Now you have a lot more of a attacking the basket, slashing kind of game, which is kind of what we already have, by the way. When people complain about the three, we also people attack the basket way more now than they ever did. They literally essentially eliminated a shot in terms of the mid-range shot in the NBA. There are very few guys that are even allowed to take those shots. Like Carmelo Anthony told the story recently. I know I'm going on a tangent, but this is my show, so I can do whatever I want. Carmelo Anthony had a story on 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, his podcast. Shout out to him. Shout out to Kazim Famuyide. And he was mentioning how when he got to the Rockets, I believe it was the Rockets. It had to be, yeah. Yeah, because that's the place where he got jettisoned. He got to the Rockets, and basically, like, they had, like, a team meeting or whatever, or, like, a film session or whatever. And I apologies if I'm bugging this story, but I think I got most of this right. And, like, essentially they were like, okay, James Harden, you could do whatever you want. Chris Paul, you could mostly do whatever you want. But here's a number of like mid-ranges we would accept from you. Everyone else, no one ever shooting the mid-range. That included you, Melo, who've made your career essentially in the mid-range. He's like, is this real? Like, is this a real thing? Like, it's basketball. Like, what happens if that's an open shot or whatever? So then, like, he's, like, testing the theory in the game. And then, like, beep, so get his ass out of there. Like, and that, it is become, with some teams, that scientific. Where it's like, those shots, don't ever take them in the NBA game. And there's some teams where it's like, there are certain guys that can do it. Like, Jalen, I'm sure if you're watching the Knicks, Jalen Brunson can take probably whatever mid-range shot he wants because he's Jalen Brunson. Now, they'll say probably, don't hunt those. Like you should try to get to the basket more, and if you can shoot the three. But because he is so good at shooting mid-range shot, they allow him to do that. I can almost promise you that they are telling, Josh Hart, take as few mid-range shots as possible. In fact, there are so many times where you actually see him dribble like around like the 20-foot mark, and he kind of like looks around like he's looking to pass. And he's not even looking at the basket because they probably told him, don't you dare shoot that shot. Because it's just to take a 2-point shot that is so low percentage, just, again, mathematically doesn't make sense. So a lot of this stuff is so formulaic. We change the rules. We actually change the court, literally. It makes people have to come up with new strategy. It makes people be more creative. That's what I would do. And I think that some of these complaints that people have about the 3-point contest stuff, they would be not complaining. It's tough to understand exactly like how much this is hurting the NBA. Like I don't know how much this is hurting viewership. I don't know. Like I can't. It's hard to put a finger on it or a number on it. Do I think it's hurting them to some degree? Yes. I think just aesthetically, it's tough to again watch basketball and see it feels like every team is playing the same way. I think the fact that and to be honest, I think some of that's hurt football too. I've mentioned that. I think it's hurt the NFL a little bit. We're in a weird part of the NFL now, where I think the defense has finally caught up with a lot of this stuff. So now, like, I think offenses are trying to figure out how to combat what's happening. Because I've complained that the fact that everyone's playing too deep shell so often now to try to limit big plays, and they're making everyone essentially just try to go tick for tick for tick when it comes to making them have long drives as opposed to giving up big plays. I think it's actually eliminated a lot of explosive plays, not just for the Chiefs, where they have been like, that's been like the blueprint in how to beat the Chiefs. I think with every team. And I think we've lacked a lot of like the big, long bombs down the field for big touchdowns. Like those plays, just think about it. I don't think you've seen them much. I don't have the math in my head or numbers in front of me. I just feel like from an eyeball test, the deep pass down the field for a touchdown is just not a play you see as much anymore. It's become so much of a dink and dunk league. And I don't think dink and dunk football is like all that appealing to people. It may not be as efficient as it was back in the day for quarterback play. These quarterback numbers are much better. But I think aesthetically, I don't think this is fun. People love violence. People love gambling. So the NFL is not going to be nearly as hurt. But I think they also have a copycat league problem thing too. But the NBA, I think, is more severe. How severe? That's kind of hard. It's hard to justify or weigh something like that. Let's move on, man. Let's talk some football, by the way. Let's keep it on football. Good segue to get to that. Joe Brady voicing his support for Keon Coleman. So if you'll remember, Keon Coleman, he's a much embattled wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. He was a second-round pick. He was the guy that was drafted to essentially replace Stephon Diggs. It has not gone very well in terms of him trying to replace Stephon Diggs. He has been a guy who came in with a lot of fanfare because he was this extremely charming character, and, his talking about the winter coats, and he loves cookies, and he's just he was like a cartoon character. Like, this guy real? Like, is he for real? A truly just like very like seemingly very just authentically like innocent kid is the best way to describe it, right? It's almost the way I describe Keon Coleman is like it's as if like Big was an NFL player. That's the best way to describe Keon Coleman. Like, imagine like the Tom Hanks movie Big, but instead of like him being like whatever, he was a businessman or a salesman, whatever he was. Imagine if he was an NFL wide receiver. That's Keon Coleman. And so immediately he becomes like a fan favorite. Like, who wouldn't want to root for Big as an NFL player? In fact, I feel like maybe I came up with a movie idea there. Don't tell anybody about that movie idea. I feel like I want to pitch that to somebody. That sounds like a really good movie. If you remake Big but make him like a sports athlete, that could be awesome. I mean, like Mike was awesome, and that was him actually being a kid in the NBA. Imagine if he did that again for a kid who then actually was like in Patrick Mahomes' body or something like that. That'd be awesome. Anyway. But he's much maligned. He's not lived up to the hype. And then beyond not just living up to the hype, he's also had issues with like showing up late to meetings, character concerns. Like, there's been other things that have been problems for him. So not performing, not great off the field, and people are pointing fingers as to who's to blame for this. And I want to play actually the Terry Pegula sound, because remember, you'll hear one of the biggest beefs I had, a lot of folks had, was that he threw Keon Coleman so incredibly under the bus. But here was Terry Pegula interrupting a question when asked about what happened with the Keon Coleman pick. He said, "Don't blame the general manager, now new president, Brandon Beane."
I thought the wide receiver position has been an issue with this team, and a lot of people out there believe you have failed in the free agent market, and then obviously with the Keon Coleman signing, which hasn't worked out. How do you answer the fact that you have not given Josh a good enough wide receiver room thus far?
Yeah, I mean,
can I interrupt? I'll address the Keon situation. The coaching staff pushed to draft Keon. I'm not saying Brandon wouldn't have drafted him, but he wasn't his next choice. That was Brandon being a team player and taking advice of his coaching staff, who felt strongly about the player.
Yeah, that guy that you all keep complaining about, yeah, the president didn't want him. Oh, he's still on the team? Well, I'm just telling you the truth. The president didn't want him. That was essentially Terry Pegula, a guy who was still on the team. He's saying that the president didn't believe in him, didn't want him. In fact, he was just doing his fellow coaches a solid by drafting Keon Coleman. It was not a guy he wanted. There's obvious reasons why that is a preposterous thing for Terry Pegula to present in a press conference. A, it wasn't true, because we see all these clips of Brandon Beane talking about how much he wanted Keon Coleman. B, it's like really ridiculous to throw your own player under the bus. And when, like, yes, he's been an issue, but like, they have Josh Allen. Like, they're Super Bowl contenders. Like, one receiver is not the reason why, like, you didn't make the Super Bowl, and he's not a reason to throw the entire season completely under the bus and talk about him as if he's a piece of garbage. And three, other people on the team can look at how you're treating a player on the team and how you're willing to talk about him in that open way and wonder, am I going to be next? So it was a completely foolish way to approach this. But I got to give Joe Brady some credit, because he had his opening press conference yesterday, and he took the opposite approach. And he kind of locked himself in here by saying this, but I do think it was the right move to talk about the fact that he is all in on Keon Coleman. And one of his things about being the head coach of Buffalo Bills is to make sure, as one former Knicks coach said, we get him right. The David Fizzo quote when he was talking about Emmanuel Mudiay. He said, "We're going to get Emmanuel Mudiay right. We're going to get you right." And Emmanuel Mudiay is Emmanuel Mudiay. So I guess you can determine whether or not he actually succeeded in that. But Joe Brady said that the best thing that happened to Keon Coleman was me being his head coach. He said, I was on the table for Keon Coleman. And he kind of alludes to the idea that I think he was trying to say that it was me. Kind of like Olenna Tyrell from the Game of Thrones series, where I wanted them to know that it was me. But in this case, he's not leaving. He's actually staying. But yeah, I think that this is Brady essentially trying to say, hey, I was someone who really did want Keon Coleman. And by the way, I'm still behind Keon Coleman. And he made other comments about, this guy is someone we're going to support. We're going to wrap our arms around. We're going to make sure that we get him to be the player he's going to be. And I told him all this. He said, we've talked since I got this job. And I got to say, this is, I think, a great sign. Because whether he can fix Keon Coleman or not, I don't think is even the point. Though, the fact that he's pushing that he thinks he can is of note for the Bills and for their future and for their hopes of trying to get over this hump. They need Keon Coleman to become, if not a number one receiver, at least a very competent, very reliable receiver, which it feels like he should have the physical tools to be, but he hasn't quite gotten there yet. But I mentioned the lack of leadership I thought we saw from that press conference from Brandon Beane and Terry Pegula, and the concern I had that the adult in the room had left the building in Sean McDermott. What I saw from Joe Brady yesterday, it's a press conference, but I think it was a big one. Like, I think this was not like your typical press conference that you just throw away, who cares. I think he couldn't botch this because of what happened last week. I think he had to have a good performance, and he did. And he looked like the leader guy. And this idea, like I mentioned before, that they were impressed with him being this leader of men, CEO type coach, would made no sense because most people looked at Joe Brady as a play caller. So like, what is this stuff you're talking about? But to be honest, like he was really impressive. And I think in terms of one of the things about being an NFL head coach is putting out fires. You're putting out fires all the time, and you're squelching distractions. And he immediately, the first distraction that he's had to be involved with, he jumped in. And immediately was like, I loved Keon Coleman from the beginning. I still love Keon Coleman, and we're going to get him right. It takes pressure now off Brandon Beane and Pegula for making those comments. We're talking about how, we didn't want Keon Coleman. It was someone else, even though there's all these clips with Brandon Beane saying he wanted him. So it takes the pressure off them, because now Joe Brady say, hey, if you want to blame anybody about that, blame me. Blame me. I'm the new coach here. Blame me, because I was here, and I wanted Keon Coleman back then. And he's saying, I want him now, and I'm going to fix him now. So now, to Keon Coleman, if you're in a situation where like, hey, like we're about to just have a sunk cost here, where we're going to have to like cut him or trade him for a 6th round pick or something stupid when he's our 2nd round guy, and in theory he is 6'3". In theory he should be a guy that could be valuable to us if we can get him to play at a high level, and we're just giving him away potentially. Now you're like, well, Brady is now got that guy maybe back on his side. He now maybe is able to wrap his arms around him, and he is maybe the coach that he needs to get him to play at a high level. So now you have an opportunity where maybe this guy can actually be the player that they hope he can be. It's a crazy kind of turn of events, but I think you look at how Brady, those comments were really smart. Forget about if they're even true. They're really smart. It was the smartest thing he could have said. Because I think they're much better off trying to keep him and make him a viable player than just jettisoning him for nothing. That would be a disaster because you would have wasted a 2nd round pick on a guy that you had to do that high on. And to take the pressure off of the front office by putting out that I'm a Keon Coleman guy, now so much of the dialogue about how, you guys are backstabbers and liars, which is what Maggie Gray was talking about and what I've been talking about all week, now that gets put to the side. Now it's like, okay, well, we know Brandon Beane was lying, but now we have at least the coach saying he also was in support of it. And we know the coaching staff wanted him because he was drafted. I don't think that the GMs are saying, draft this guy. I don't care what your coaches think. Just like it's a flip side. I don't think the coaches are bullying the general manager into taking players that he doesn't want, especially in the 2nd round of the NFL draft. That's insane. It's an insane thing for Cool to even suggest. But this approach from Joe Brady, I loved it, man. I mean, job well done. This was really impressive. I mean, I still think that the Bills in the front office, they're a clown show, but I think you could turn off the Barnum Brothers music today. I think your penance has been served. I think Joe Brady came in, was an adult. He himself went up there and turned off the music. Say, all right, let's calm down here. Let's get this thing right. Good job by Joe Brady. It was just smart. It was just a smart thing to do. Well, again, will it work? I don't know. Keon Coleman may be a bust. That is 100% on the table. And if he's a bust, who cares about these comments? Like, if they try it out, it doesn't work out, then you cut him and then you just move on. But I think, like, coaches have to be able to put out fires, man, and he did it. We also learned during this that Josh Allen, he showed up in support of Joe Brady. he was in a walking boot and in crutches. And apparently he had been playing this whole, I guess, second half of the season, or however long he'd been playing with this foot injury. He had a broken bone in his foot. Now, the good news is that it seems like it's not going to be something that's super debilitating and super long-term for him. But it does speak to just like how much he was nicked up and banged up for this postseason run. The only thing I'll say on the foot injury is, A, the guy's a warrior. The guy's tough, and we know how tough Josh Allen is. I wonder I don't really care about the media. I don't care about that narrative for a lot of reasons. But I'm not even going to get into why I don't care, because I don't. But for the Bills Mafia, I'm actually curious. Like, will the fact that now they know that he was playing on a broken foot, for those that are giving Josh some hell and are really disappointed in that fact that they were unable to get to the Super Bowl in a year where Lamar Jackson is not in the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes is not in the playoffs, and Joe Burrow is not in the playoffs, in part for Mahomes because of injury. Do they look at this postseason run that they have this uber disappointment, this like crushing disappointment that I've underrated? I still continue to underrate. When Maggie came on and said that was the worst loss I've ever experienced as a Bills fan, I couldn't believe it. But then I've also, like, obviously I posted clips from the show on the Bills stuff we talked about. I've seen the Bills' reaction to the catch and not catch and stuff. I've obviously taken this extremely hard. I look at it and I'm like, you had 4 turnovers against a kind of a mid-team. Like, you should have lost. Like, I don't know why you're complaining about this being a heartbreaker. But whatever, I'm not in it, so it's not me. But I kind of wonder if they're going to look at this and say, well, Josh was nowhere close to healthy. So, like, how could we really look at this and say this was some massive disappointment and, like, we really botched this thing and now maybe the window was closed because we didn't get it done in this moment? Josh is playing with a broken foot. That's going to obviously limit him. Now, the guy was still running around like a maniac, and the guy was still trying to make all these plays. In fact, it actually, to me, it actually enhances the fact that he was being way too reckless and careless. Like, if you were playing with a broken foot, you shouldn't be running at the end of the first half, trying to run with the ball all willy-nilly. You're playing on a broken foot. You know that you're limited in terms of your ability to run and speed. Like, it just didn't make sense to put yourself even in harm's way in that way. So there's aspects of this that maybe more question why he played the game he played. But I do think that if you're a Bills fan, I wonder if you say, okay, it just wasn't going to be our year. Yes, those other guys got hurt and didn't make the playoffs, but Josh is playing on a broken foot. There was dissension with the head coach in the front office. It just wasn't going to happen this year. And I wonder if that kind of lessens the blow of this season. It also, by the way, just speaks to, again, just like Josh Allen, like the way he plays, the way he puts his body on the line, because he's so big and because he hasn't dealt with like an injury that has like kept him out of like games or kept him out of playing for a long time. We kind of just act like he can just like literally just be Superman. It doesn't really matter if how hurt he is or what he's dealing with. He'll be fine. I mean, we talked about Lamar Jackson and the idea that, you know, once you get to a certain age and you're a mobile quarterback, like the cliff comes way faster for them. We saw it with Cam Newton. We saw it with Michael Vick. We just see it with everybody. Randall Cunningham. Randall Cunningham actually was really good late in his career, but a lot of guys, that cliff comes immediately because of the hits they've taken and because they're not as special a talent when you don't have to rely or be worried so much about their running game. So I'm wondering about Josh Allen. Like, is this the beginning of something? Like, this was a bad foot injury that he had to play through. He played through it. He played pretty well, but I still look at him and I'm like, is this the beginning of something? Are we going to see him be an injury-prone guy, a guy who's going to have to battle injuries? And what does that mean for his career? Does he have to adjust his game? These are all aspects I think that are going to be fair to discuss when we're trying to figure out who Josh Allen's going to be in the 2.0, 3.0 version of his career, because he's now entering his age 30 season. He's now going to be a 30-year-old quarterback. And it's not ancient, but I do think for a guy who puts his body on the line as often as he does, it does potentially require him to have to maybe change up his game. So moving forward, man, this Bill Belichick situation has been, I have found this hilarious. People are so mad about this. It's crazy. I was actually talking about it off air actually with Dexter Henry and the folks at NY Post Sports, and I was telling them, I'm like, I don't think my Jets fandom or most of my fandom, well, I'm probably being biased saying this. I don't think it really, for like very objective things like this, I don't think it comes into play so much for how I view things. And yes, I hate the Patriots just as a fan. And I've hated the Bill Belichick as a fan. I have nothing against the man personally, but as a fan, yes, I've hated him because he's tormented my team because he won all the championships. But typically speaking, I haven't had this, like, I don't think about Bill Belichick every day. I don't go through this thing every day. So when this whole situation with him missing the Hall of Fame happened, again, like I said, I knew it was a big story. I was like, okay, that's crazy. But I kind of like, that's crazy. Just kept it moving. And now everyone's still stuck on it. There's like this whodunit of where to find the people that didn't vote for Bill Belichick. And now you got these guys that are having to answer for themselves for why they didn't. Again, I was telling you yesterday, like I wasn't sure if we were gonna find these guys. I was like, I don't know if like that's information we're gonna get in terms of who voted for who. These guys are outing themselves, which makes me think that maybe they've decided, oh, like I'm gonna be outed, so I might as well explain myself. So we've had multiple guys that have come out now and said why they didn't vote for Bill Belichick. And there was 2 guys already. So there's going to be at least 10, right? Because 40 votes was the threshold for what it took to get to the Hall of Fame. I don't know why this article doesn't want to load for me. It's so annoying. Okay, finally it loads, and it loads the wrong article. This is annoying. I'm trying to get you these quotes from these guys about why they didn't vote for Bill Belichick. And I'll say this just off rip, as this article drives me crazy and not loading. I'll say this off rip and I'll say it again. I've said it a bunch. Like, part of the reason why I'm not going crazy about this is because I just feel like he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Like, it'd be different if it was like, oh, he's banned from the Hall of Fame, or it's going to take him another 10 years to get in. Like, he will get in next year. He's definitely getting in next year after all this hullabaloo, all this crazy. Like, you'd be insane to go back next year and say I'm also now, again, not going to vote for Bill Belichick. They might actually draw and quarter you right in the middle of the Boston Square. Like that's not something I think that's not smoke I think anyone is looking to invite. So he's going to get into the Hall of Fame. So this shouldn't even first ballot, of course. Is it ridiculous that there's a year where he's eligible and he's not in the Hall of Fame? Yes, it is. Do I think it means the Hall of Fame is like illegitimate or like this like joke of a thing? I don't go that far, but it is, again, I can keep saying it's odd. It's weird. I don't know why this happened the way it did. It is strange. But there are a couple guys that voted, and I'll get you these quotes. One was from Mike Chappell, who was Fox 59 Indianapolis. He wrote a column. He explained why he voted for Robert Kraft in the seniors contributor coach category and not Bill Belichick. He says, quote, now I actually posted for you guys so you can see this here. So give me 1 second as I show this to you guys. And here we go. Hopefully this will come out soon. See it blinking. And then I see now a black screen. Still a black screen. So maybe I won't be able to show you the quote, unfortunately. But I will read you the quote if this is not going to want to load correctly, which is a bummer. I'll try one more time. Let's see. Come on, man, load. Okay, black screen. So it does not want to show you this Mike Chappell quote. So I'll quote it here. So he says here, as one of the 50 selectors, I voted, and he put it in all caps, for Robert Kraft, the longtime accomplished New England Patriots owner. I did not vote, and he put it in all caps, against Bill Belichick, the longtime accomplished head coach of that dynasty. I realize that that's a difference without a distinction, but I'm comfortable with my decision. Then he explained that that votes can spread thin very quickly with the current rules that mix senior players like Ken Anderson, L.C. Greenwood, and Roger Craig. Those are guys that are up for the Hall of Fame this year, with coaches like Bill Belichick and contributors like Robert Kraft. So he said, I'm not in favor of grouping senior candidates with coaches and contributors, but that's above my pay grade. Most of the time, I'm going to lean towards supporting senior nominees. If that player or players doesn't get the necessary support when presented by the seniors committee, there's a very good chance they'll never be considered. I voted for one coach contributor, that was Robert Kraft, and 2 senior candidates. This was also kind of echoed by the other guy who also voted against Bill Belichick, who's identified themselves. And apologies on these pronunciations of their names. But I'm going to say Vahi Gregorian. He's of the Kansas City Star. So he said that he did not vote for Belichick and said, I didn't vote for Belichick or Kraft, but instead voted for, and he didn't do all caps, he did italics. This is how the writers are getting in their bag here when it comes to putting together these articles to emphasize what they're trying to say. I voted for 3 senior candidates: Ken Anderson, Roger Craig, and L.C. Greenwood. Chappell did vote for, obviously the other guy did vote for Belichick. And Chappell was saying that the first guy was Kraft's role in building the Patriots dynasty in 1994, before Belichick arrived. His undeniable role in helping negotiate the end of the 100-play day work stoppage in 2011 while his wife was gravely ill has resulted in long-standing labor peace. Chappell also said that the Spygate scandal against Belichick was a stain on his legacy. Of course, that was when Patriots were caught videotaping other teams' sidelines to get signals during games using it seemed like an illegal, like a phone or just like a camera or whatever. And they were fined all this money, and they were stripped of a first-round pick. But he makes clear here, Chappell said, Belichick sometimes antagonistic relationship with the media did not play a role in his failure to make the Hall of Fame, even called such a suggestion asinine. So what you hear from both guys is this idea that there's a lot of blaming of the rules, of that there's a situation where we've got these older players, these older guys who are here, and they're senior players because they're not part of the modern era thing anymore, and because this is a much smaller pool of people. Like the fact that they get up to this point, if they get to this point and then they don't get it, this could kind of be curtains for them. Whereas if you're a contributor or you're a coach, if you're the best coach, like Bill Belichick's going to be the number one coaching candidate probably every year he's on the ballot. He's going to get moved up every year. That seems to be like the big thing what these guys are saying is that when we looked at that and we said, okay, L.C. Greenwood and Ken Anderson, those guys are much older. Roger Craig's older too, but those guys are, L.C. Greenwood has got to be, I assume in his 70s maybe. How old is L.C. Greenwood? Now I want to know. He is, I'm sorry, he passed away. So L.C. Greenwood's already passed away, and Ken Anderson, I'm not sure how Ken Anderson. I'm not going to guess his age because I don't want to have that happen again. But obviously these are guys who are older folks. So Ken Anderson, he's with us, and he's 76 years old. So again, we're talking about older guys. One gentleman is not even with us anymore, and I think the thought process being, well, these are older gentlemen, some are not with us anymore, and if these guys don't get in now, they may not ever get in. Whereas Bill Belichick, who's also, to be fair, older, but he's a coach, and this is his first time on the ballot, that he'll have other opportunities. Which is kind of what, Mike Sando, I posted that tweet from him that said you guys should all read in terms of like the rules and how this could have happened. He alluded to some of that stuff as well. I will say this. I think I agree with them that the rules are stupid. I don't think that you should have senior players being matched with coaches, because to me it actually doesn't even make sense. Because if it's a senior committee, you would think that would mean, okay, these are all people who, like, we're talking about people from yesteryear, right? Like guys who played in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. Like Roger Craig kind of pushes it, kind of close to the 90s, more 80s probably. But like, if that's the case, then that should be also with coaches. Like, coaches and contributors should be folks who have made their impacts during that time. You should not have L.C. Greenwood being compared to Bill Belichick. It's just Bill Belichick retired from coaching just a couple years ago. This is his first year on the ballot. He's old, but he's not someone that's not recent. He is. It's literally putting generations against each other. And not only are you putting generations against each other, you're also putting different roles against each other. You're putting players against coaches. You're putting players from the 70s against coaches from last year, 2 years ago. Bill Belichick was running the Patriots 2 years ago. Like that, and I know like Bill Belichick's he's going to be a special case. There aren't going to be a lot of guys who are just going to like retire or get ousted by the NFL, whatever his deal is, and immediately become the number one candidate to be inducted to the Hall of Fame. Like, there's no one else probably with that resume. arguably maybe Mike Tomlin, if he really puts out there that I'm retiring, but I don't think he's just jumping the gun and jumping past all these other coaches, by the way, Tom Coughlin and Mike Holmgren. There's all these guys, I think, who haven't gotten in yet. He's not jumping all those guys, I think. So he's a rare case, but the principle of the matter is stupid. Like, in theory, somebody can retire and in 2 years be up for the Hall of Fame against somebody that played 40 years ago. That does not make any sense. So from that standpoint, I understand their beef with that. I just think that that consideration should not be why Bill Belichick wasn't in. And that sounds like harsh, and it's not like the human response. Because again, one gentleman has passed away, and Ken Anderson is 76 years old. Like, to say you shouldn't care that this guy may not ever see himself get in the Hall of Fame sounds harsh, but this is the Hall of Fame. Like, this is like the truly elite of the elite. It's a extremely special group, and I don't feel like you should be picking, like, I say this with all respect, because it's the only word I can think of. You shouldn't be doing like these charity type cases where it's like, well, I feel bad that this person, if they don't get in, they may never get in, or it's gonna take a longer time for them to get in, and I want to do the right thing and make sure they get into the Hall of Fame. That's not what they're asking you when you put a ballot on. I say this every single time. It's why I hate the stupid first ballot Hall of Famer conversation. I hate it. Now, with football, it's a little different because the rules, there's limited people. But, like, with baseball, I hate it because I'm like, there are folks who will go years and years and years that will never vote for a guy. But then in their 8th year, will decide, oh, you know what, now I'll vote for Carlos Beltran. I'll vote for Craig Biggio. And I'm like, wait a minute. Craig Biggio's career didn't change when he retired. It didn't change when he became first-time eligible. It didn't change when he was 3rd year eligible. It didn't change when he was 8th year eligible. Like, why now? Like, Larry Walker just got in on, like, the last year. Why is Larry Walker waiting 10 years when his career never changed? And I know with baseball, we're getting more advanced analytics that are adding more stats to these guys. So I think for some, baseball is a little bit of a weird case. But for the most part, their careers are the same. And to me, like, what they're asking you on the ballot, they don't say, do you think Larry Walker is a first ballot Hall of Famer? That's not what the question is. The question is, check off the guys here that you think are Hall of Famers. I think you got up to, 10 people or whatever you can induct, whatever it is. Whoever your top 5 are. There's some people who put nobody. There's some people who don't vote for anybody. But will then vote for these guys 5 years later. Like, so I hate the conversation about first-year ballot and second-year ballot and all that stuff. I just think it's stupid. I don't think it makes any sense. But it kind of relates to this, too. Like, the question is on the ballot, I assume I don't have the ballot in front of me. We always see the baseball ballot. I don't know what the ballot says on the Hall of Fame thing. But we do know the rules and what you're looking for. And I'm 99% certain it doesn't say which of these guys is most deserving to get in the Hall of Fame based on the fact that their circumstances mean they may not get in again. Or something. Like, that's not the question. It's not the question. It's not part of the consideration. They're asking you, rank the guys who are most deserving to get into the Hall of Fame. Period. Cut and dry. No other thing should be part of this equation. I'm sorry that Ken Anderson is an older gentleman, and like this is what it's gonna be. And like, it looks like I don't think he's gonna get in. So like, maybe give him a congratulations soon. It'll be awesome if he gets in. He should have been in. But like, I'm sorry, like it can't be. Well, I'm worried about Ken Anderson and this being his last opportunity potentially, and he's older, and then L.C. Greenwood has already passed away, and you know he may not ever get in. I'm sorry. That is not a reason to say that that person is more deserving than the greatest head coach in NFL history. It's not. It just isn't. It's not part of the conversation. It's not part of the consideration when you vote. And I look at these people who get these positions to vote for the Hall of Fame, and I think about the honor that is. Like, that's what, like, there's things that, you know, I think about, like, my life, my career, things I want to do, like, and I always talk about the fun stuff. Like, you know, I always said, oh, I want to play in an NBA celebrity game, which is now not going to happen because I tore up my knee. But, like, I think about other things I want to do just because, like, if you're a media professional, there's maybe fun things that could come your way, these little mini dreams. A lot of them I like to veer towards the silly ones just because, I don't like to take myself very seriously. But I think if there was one thing I would say that would be really cool for me to do one day, I would be so honored to ever have to be able to vote for a Hall of Fame or a Heisman, like those two particularly, whether it's for football, baseball, or basketball for a Hall of Fame. And the way people are sanctimonious about their views on like what's fair and what's not fair is so sickening. Like, these people are the worst. It's not about you. It's not about what you think is fair. You don't make what the Hall of Fame is. This is about putting in the most prestigious, the most celebrated, the most decorated people in the history of the NFL when they're eligible. Period. And like I said earlier, I totally agree that the rules and the way they were set up definitely does pit people against each other that they shouldn't. And it puts guys like Ken Anderson and L.C. Greenwood in bad spots. Because you have to compare them against Bill Belichick. It is stupid. That also doesn't mean that if Bill Belichick's on the ballot, that those guys should get in just because they're in a tough spot. It's the Hall of Fame. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be challenging. It's supposed to be a thing that not everyone gets into. And if you don't get in, it's sad for those guys. I know those guys. It would be heartbreaking, obviously, for Ken Anderson if he didn't get in. But come on, and I'm the last guy that's the participation trophy complainer. I think those people also are like, get over yourself. They're kids, right? Or whatever. We can celebrate people. It's fine. I'm not that guy. I'm never that guy. But like, this is like the only thing where I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is the one where you can't do that. You can't do I feel bad. And I don't know if they're going to get voted in, so now I'm voting for people, and I'm not voting for Bill Belichick. And it would be different if it was like, okay, it was, I'm trying to throw out a random, who's a great coach? If it was even Andy Reid still, I think, would be way more deserving than Ken Anderson was. But you know what? I'd say he's not Bill Belichick. He's great. He's one of the maybe 4 or 5 best coaches ever. But okay. It'd be weird. I would disagree with it, but I would understand. This is like the equivalent of saying, like, when Greg Popovich becomes eligible to make the NBA Hall of Fame, the Basketball Hall of Fame, and they decided we're not going to put, Greg Popovich in the Hall of Fame. Instead, we were going to put in, and I love this guy, but we're going to put in Bernard King. We're going to put in Bernard King. Why? Well, he's older, and I don't know when he's going to get another opportunity, so, like, we're going to put him in. And I love Bernard King, and I'm a Knicks fan, and I've worn his shirt on this show multiple times. He's Greg Popovich. He has the most wins of all time. He has, 6 championships? Like, you can't do that. That cannot be a reason to do that. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Like, again, I'm not going crazy about it. Like, I'm not like, oh, this is like some, like, again, people say burn down the Hall of Fame. I know I'm trying to, like, kind of very, like, jokingly said that, of course. But, like, oh, like, the Hall of Fame's a joke. And, like, people like, this is a travesty. And these people, like, I don't think it's all that. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think people should even have their votes rescinded or anything that crazy. But I do think there should be, like, what they call a reassessing or, like, a re-reminder. Or just a reminder. Re-reminder is not a thing. A reminder to, like an advisory they send out to all the voters, being like, remember, this is what you're supposed to be considering when you're voting for the Hall of Fame. Not this other stuff that you want to put up in your head and think about, like, this guy is old and he might not get in anymore, so therefore I'm putting him ahead of people that he's not nearly as good as. Like, that's not what we're asking for you to do. We're asking you to put in the most qualified people every single year. That's all we're asking. These other considerations are not considerations we want or care about. It sounds cold. It sounds harsh. It's the damn Hall of Fame. Get over it. So last thing on today is because it's a story I tease too often to not finally do. And now I feel like it's going to be like not like that fun or funny. And you're going to be like, you really like kept holding this story just for this. You could have just let it go. Well, I'm going to do it because I hate teasing something that I've never done. It just drives me crazy. So, speaking of Hall of Fames, this week, Reggie Miller was on Dan Patrick's show. Dan Patrick, of course, a friend of Maggie Perloff, and obviously Perloff was McLovin. First of all, Perloff's always McLovin. But obviously he was known as McLovin on Dan Patrick's show. And Dan Patrick also phenomenal job, and also nice guy. I got to meet him once, super gracious. But like, he had Reggie Miller on recently, and they were talking about Derrick Rose. So Derrick Rose got his number retired in Chicago, which was a massive event, and people were obviously, it was very emotional for a lot of the people in the stands. Emotional for Derrick Rose, emotional for his family. Like, he is really truly like Chicago's favorite son. It's just a special relationship he has with that city. So now that he's got his number retired, you've had the official Derrick Rose Day that they had last year as well. We're now getting all right. He has his number retired. He's now immortalized with the Bulls. What's the next step? Hall of Fame case. What's going to happen with Derrick Rose in his Hall of Fame case? Well, Reggie Miller was asked this by Dan Patrick. Here's what Reggie Miller had to say.
Derrick Rose got his jersey retired. Is he going to the Hall of Fame?
I would be surprised if he doesn't. He will be the only MVP not to be in the Hall of Fame.
Man, if he didn't get hurt,
is he a first ballot? I doubt he'll be first ballot, but he'll get in at some point.
That is a perfectly fair and fine assessment by a fellow Hall of Famer in Reggie Miller. I am someone who says Derrick Rose should be a Hall of Famer. That is my take on it. I know his peak was short. I know he only has 3 All-Star appearances. He only has, I think, All-NBAs. I think is also, he may only have 1 All-NBA, if I'm looking at this correctly. Yeah, I think he only has 1 All-NBA, which is shocking, but it has to be true because I'm looking at it right now. So, 1 MVP, 1 All-NBA, 3 All-Stars. You look and say, that's a tough one. You're really going to put him in the Hall of Fame. What I say is, I think, one, he was tracking to absolutely be a Hall of Fame if he doesn't get hurt. That's just obvious with how good he was and how young he was. I also feel like, to me, and it's a little weird, but I think he also, like after figuring out how to take care of his body and figure out how to, what the 2.0 version of Rose is going to be, he then became like a very productive, very good player in the NBA, like years after his knee injury. He was able to be a 6-man of the year type candidate for the Knicks, for the Pistons, for the Timberwolves. Like, he put together some really good years with really good numbers. Like, they're not superstar numbers, but they're good. And I think about like who he was, a Rookie of the Year, MVP, putting the city on his back. Basketball, the threshold for Hall of Fame is a lot lower. It just is. It's not my rules. It's just how they've done it. And I think about some of the people that are in the Hall of Fame. There are guys in the Hall of Fame that have never made All-Star games or have made 1 or 2. There are guys that have never won championships. I think considering how good Derrick Rose is at his peak, there are so many guys that are in the Hall of Fame that were never anywhere close to as good as Derrick Rose at his peak, that I think it's fair to say if I'm going to put those guys got in, then if I'm judging that on that, then Derrick Rose, I think, deserves to get in, even though his career was greatly altered by a devastating knee injury that he continued to have problems with. It wasn't like it was a one injury. He injured his knee a couple of times after that too. But then what ends up happening is I hate this aspect of this business and of this thing because I'm someone who, when I lived it and you tell me something that is just utterly ridiculous and cap, I can't avoid talking about how ridiculous this is. So Reggie Miller makes the case that Derrick Rose is a Hall of Famer. For that, for the most part, I agree with. But then he says something that I don't think anybody should agree with.
For a 6 to 8 year stretch, him and LeBron were battling for who was the best player in the game. And the youngest MVP, I would be surprised.
What? A 6 to 8 year stretch, Derrick Rose was battling LeBron to see who the best player in the NBA was? Like, there's a part of me that's like, did Reggie Miller mean 6 to 8 months? And I don't mean that to be like sound like disrespectful to Derrick Rose. He got injured. Like, otherwise he would have been one of the best players in the NBA for a long time. But like, legitimately, like, I think there may be a case to be made that there was like a 6 to 8 month conversation. 6 to 8 years. What years were that? Again, I already told you he only made the All-Star game 3 times. He's only been an All-NBA, any team, not just first team, any All-NBA team. Once in his career. Once. That's it. One time. Where was this year where Derrick Rose was battling LeBron James to be the best player in the NBA? He averaged 25 points and 7 assists, was MVP in 2011. And MVP, by the way, I'm standing 10 toes down. He effing deserved. I wanted to curse there. I haven't cursed yet. One day I probably will. He effing deserved. I hate these people who were not there, who go to box scores and then go to what happened in the postseason, and from years later being like, oh, y'all robbed LeBron of that MVP. BS. I want to say something worse than that. BS. I watched LeBron James struggle that early in that year with the Miami Heat. I watched him struggling, not trying to figure out who's going to take the last shot, shying away from taking the last shot. I watched a team also that, like, because of the nature of the team, they all had value to each other. Everyone was kind of eaten. This was not a LeBron James-led Miami Heat team. Those teams came later, and then he won MVPs, and he deserved them. That Miami Heat team was just as much Dwayne Wade's team as LeBron James' team. And if you're saying anything otherwise, you're effing lying. I'm sorry. I'm not dealing with it. I'm not. But these idiots who were not there or even were there but want to just glaze LeBron, want to go to a basketball reference page and say, wait a minute, LeBron James had this PER, and LeBron James averaged this amount more points, and LeBron James did X, Y, and Z. Well, clearly he actually deserved the MVP, not Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose took a Bulls team that was an 8th seed the year before. They had the best damn record in the NBA. And he was playing at a time, now we have great point guards now too, but he was playing at a time where it was maybe the golden age of point guards, maybe in the history of the NBA. You had in your prime Chris Paul, Darren Williams, Rajon Rondo. Every team seemed to have a great point guard. And he was beheading all of these guys. He was dominant at his position. And don't give me, well, the efficiency. It's a different sport than it is now. Him shooting 44% is actually really good for a point guard, scoring point guard in 2011. When he's playing the kind of defense he was playing for a Bulls team that was the best defensive team in the NBA, that had the best record in the Eastern Conference. And people do this thing of going back and trying to rewrite history to glaze whoever their stand guy is. And I hate it. It's one of the things I hate the most about sports right now. So people will run and say things about like Derrick Rose not deserving that MVP, and it drives me insane. But then, with that being said, to go on the flip side of that, bro, Derrick Rose was not competing for being the best player in the NBA for 6 to 8 years. He was essentially injured for 6 to 8 years. And again, I'm trying to be respectful, but that's the reality. 2011, he was the MVP. The MVP he deserved. 2012, he had a very limited season. He was hurt all year, but the Bulls still had a great record. And in the playoffs, he got hurt. And that was the year that the Bulls still thought they could have won a championship, and then they didn't. So he gets hurt, and now he's done for the year. Didn't play the next year because of the knee injury. 2014, he only played 10 games. 2015, he plays 50 games, but he's only a shell of himself. He only averages 17 points. His last year with the Bulls, he's still a shell of himself, recovering from the multiple knee injuries. He only averaged 16 points. None of these years he's made the All-Star game. By 2017, he's on the Knicks. And this is the first stint that didn't go that well. He played okay, but he went AWOL on the team midway through the year, and that was the end of his Knicks career, essentially. There was not a 6 to 8 year stretch where he was battling LeBron James to be the best player in the NBA. I don't like. People just say stuff, man. And the saying that they say Google is free is such a. I love that statement and I love that saying because it's so true. I'm like, Google is free. And I don't know. Reggie may not know he's gonna be asked about Derrick Rose, and I'm not trying to be ageist, but and Reggie's not ancient, but Reggie's older. And look, I'm 34, and I feel like I forget things all the time too. So it's not even an ageist thing. I say things, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know I said that. Andreas, you said this. Like, wait, I did? I didn't even know. So it happens to everybody. It happens to everybody get older. So Reggie he may have just had a moment left. He could have misspoke. He could have meant 6 to 8 months. And I'm kind of hoping that's the case. Because I would argue, yeah, for 6 to 8 months, he won the MVP over LeBron James. So, yeah, it was an argument about, is this guy the new best player in the NBA? People thought he may be the new face of the NBA. That was real. But 6 to 8 year stretch of Derrick Rose and LeBron James, who's the best player in the NBA, that never happened. That never happened. Was not even close. Wasn't, like, not even close. It wasn't even a 4-year stretch. It wasn't even a 3-year stretch. You could maybe argue 2. If you want to say 2011, they have the number 1 seed, he's the MVP. You want to say 2012, even though his stats kind of declined and he was nicked up that year. You want to say, okay, he's nicked up, but the Bulls are still having a great season. They're still the top threat to the East in the Heat in the Eastern Conference. If you want to say that team also had an opportunity to potentially say, okay, Derrick Rose is still the best player in the league, I can give you 2 years. That's the most I can give you. I can't give you any more than that. I'm sorry. So I had to play that sound. I didn't think that the most of this would be me going crazy about the Derrick Rose 2011 MVP year. But I had to play this guy. I heard that. I was like, did I hear that correctly? Did you say Derrick 6 to 8 years competing with LeBron James? And what universe was that? And also, like, in that universe, where's Kevin Durant? Where's Stephen Curry? Where's Carmelo Anthony? Like, there are a bunch of guys that we actually had debates about with, like, who the best player in the NBA is that weren't Derrick Rose. Like, he's also putting Derrick Rose above all those other guys. There was 1 year where Melo competed for an MVP. There was years where Kevin Durant won MVP over LeBron James. There was years Steph Curry won MVP over LeBron James. And he just disappeared all those guys. I'm like, what 6-year stretch is he talking about? So I don't know what Reggie Miller was saying with that, man. Yeah, Bob Custer in the chat saying EJ all fired up. Yeah, man, I am. That is a huge pet peeve of mine. Like, if I had to think of some of the biggest pet peeves I have in sports today, I think the revisionist history thing that people do, it actually drives me insane. It's so disingenuous, it's so biased, and it's oftentimes so missing so much context that and then you can't really argue it because you're arguing with somebody who wasn't there or doesn't really care to understand the context of it. Like, it's just, and I guess I'm someone, like, you guys are learning this if you obviously Maggie Perloff. If you're here from Maggie Perloff, like, I talk a lot on the show. I'm not the host of the show, right? That's Maggie Ray, that's Andrew Perloff. So there's aspects to my thought process and things that you're learning probably about me. And like I said, saying you're a historian of the game sounds kind of pretentious, so I don't want to kind of say that. But I do truly care about, like, the history of the NBA. And really of the NFL too. Like, I love sports history. I do. So, like, when I see folks who obviously don't care about sports history, and they just want to push a take for today, that they can get off today, and change the narrative from guys that have been playing, that have put their blood, sweat, and tears into their crafts and their sports, and denigrate those guys, that pisses me off so much. I don't know if there's a bigger pet peeve I have right now in sports. I'll be honest. Like, it really POs me because I was there. I watched that 2011 season with Derrick Rose. He won the MVP easily. It wasn't a conversation. It's not that, oh, these voters were idiots back then. No, we were alive. We had eyes. We watched the Miami Heat struggle for a good stretch of that season. We watched LeBron James struggle with his role. He was putting up numbers. Yes, because he's LeBron James. And guess what? He's not playing with the best shooting guard in the NBA. So guess what? Yes, his efficiency numbers are going to be better. We saw his impact. We saw him trying to feel his way through that. It was not smooth. It wasn't. The Heat was supposed to run away with the Eastern Conference in the regular season. And they got lapped by the Bulls in the regular season. It's a regular season award. And they got lapped because Derrick Rose took this jump in his game that was astronomical. And he was doing it at the hardest position to play in the NBA. Those are 100% fair reasons for him to win the MVP. And people want to come in, Johnny-come-latelys want to come in and say, oh, actually, you guys are dummies. You didn't know what you're talking about. Man, get the F out of here. Nonsense. And Bob Cuts was saying here as well. Like I said, some people tear players down. That's what they do. That's like they do it. They think they're hyping up their guy. They're hyping up LeBron or whatever. And, like, it's so wildly disrespectful. And I'm not saying that every year there isn't bad MVP votes. Like, I will tell you, Steve Nash has 2 MVPs. I think he should have only 1. The second one he won, I thought was ridiculous. I don't think he should have won that. I think that they should have went to Kobe Bryant, who finished in 4th place, which was. I think there was a lot of weird stuff going on with Kobe at that time. I think that the media wasn't really ready to embrace him, and that was insane. That he took Smush Parker and Kwame Brown to the playoffs, averaging 35 points a game, and he won MVP. That was a crime that happened. People argue that the Nash versus Shaq one. I thought Nash should have won it that year. It was very close. It was extremely close, and if you want to say Shaq, fine. I don't think Shaq got robbed. Steve Nash took a team that was like a 50-loss team, a 55-loss team. And the next year, they're the best team in the Western Conference. And he's leading the league in assists. And he really became the engine to a generational offense. In fact, it's an offense that now all you people are hating. Because you keep thinking, oh, it's the Warriors that changed all this. No, the Suns actually changed all this stuff. Steph Curry just brought in the aspect of guys being able to shoot from super long distance. But the volume of threes, that started in Phoenix. And that started with Steve Nash and his ability to get into the paint and just destroy people and spray the balls out. And all this pick and roll stuff, these rim runner guys, all these bigs you guys love to talk about, that started with Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire pick and rolls. The guy revolutionized the sport. He deserved the MVP in my opinion. If you want to argue Shaq, Shaq is Shaq. So, okay, we can argue that. I think he deserved that one. The second one, and I know Amari was hurt the second year. The second one, he did not outplay Kobe Bryant. That was insane. He should not have got that one. So I'm not saying that every single one is the right vote, or we shouldn't. That none of them should be criticized in any way. But the Derrick Rose one, the arguments I hear, they're so nonsensical. I'm like, yeah, you just weren't there, or you're lying. It's either one or the other. The Shaq one, the Kobe one, those are like, okay, yeah, I disagree, or maybe I agree, but like you're making points that make sense. People talking about the Derrick Rose one, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. You actually have no idea what you're talking about. The Heat were so unimpressive in that first year during the regular season. It was so much so that people thought the Bulls would beat them. Like, people were like, oh, man, the Bulls may actually beat the Heat in the playoffs. Because, like, the Bulls, I think, won 60 games that year or something crazy. Like, they were a great team. They were legitimately a great team. And then he took care of them because, like, the Heat started to figure it out. And they just overwhelmed the Bulls in the postseason with their athleticism. They were able to put LeBron on Derrick Rose late in games. It was a very competitive, very fun 5-game series, but it was a 5-game series because the Heat were just too much. Too much offense, too much athleticism, and they took care of Chicago. But the regular season, no. That regular season was about Derrick Rose. It was not about LeBron James. To make that about anything else is ridiculous. So, yeah, I think it does tear down people and disrespect Derrick Rose's legacy, and I'm not about that. I'm not about just disrespecting anybody's legacy for the sake of propping up LeBron James. Give me a break. Are you positive Derrick Rose shouldn't have been third behind Dwight Howard and LeBron? See, Rob, he always likes to troll. No, yes, I'm very positive that it should have been Derrick Rose ahead of both LeBron and Dwight Howard. Get out of here with Dwight Howard. Come on now. Now we're being really silly. Now, Dwight Howard, the year before, I'm trying to get my math right, when he was in Orlando, LeBron's last MVP in Cleveland, that's literally the year before, that was probably his best MVP case. He couldn't win it over LeBron. LeBron was just too good that last year in Cleveland, and Cleveland was too dominant. So that was going to be a hard one. But Dwight Howard is actually somebody who I'm glad he's in the Hall of Fame. You know, he takes a lot of arrows, slings and arrows. He takes a lot of crap from people. He's had some off-the-court stuff that hasn't necessarily been the most savory, but there are allegations. I don't know what's going on with that stuff, but in terms of just the player, we kind of forget how great he was. He's another guy that I also feel like sometimes you go back to stats and people are like, really? This guy was that good? I'm like, you weren't there, man. I don't know what to tell you. And that's one thing about basketball too, is that like the game changes and it evolves. So stats evolve and change. So you may say, okay, how did Derrick Rose win MVP averaging 25 points and 7 assists? Like LeBron's averaging 25 points and 7 assists this year. The game was a lot slower, which meant that the teams were playing with less possessions. If Derrick Rose was playing in this NBA that was this spaced out, that had this much up and down game, that 25 points is probably 32 points. It's probably 32 points. It's probably 10 assists. Like the numbers are probably bigger because there were just more possessions in the game. He's playing with Tom Thibodeau in 2011. You know how slow you're probably playing? You're probably playing the slowest pace in the league in 2011. So again, that's what I'm saying. People run to just numbers and say, "Oh, the numbers tell me that you guys messed up this vote." I'm like, no, you're not applying it correctly, man. You're not. Yeah, Dwight Howard finished second that year in MVP voting. Yeah, I'll be honest. I always felt like, again, that more evidence that this year was not about LeBron, which I keep saying over and over again. It was not even close. Derrick Rose had 113 first place votes. Dwight Howard was next with 3. And then people would run around and say, "You guys botched this vote." I'm like, what are you talking about? But no, I don't think Dwight Howard had any case. I thought the year before Dwight Howard was better. The Magic, of course, went to the finals that year. So, the playoffs showed that he had that kind of impact as well. That was probably, I thought, his best shot at an MVP. But the problem was it was just LeBron was just too good. And he didn't score as much. He scored more in 2011. In 2010, he only averaged 18 points a game. But his defense and his rebounding was actually much better than it was for the rest of his career. I don't want to say rest of his career. But for that run, I thought 2010 Dwight was the best era of his game. That was me. So no, he should not have been in third place. Do not give me the troll takes from Rod DeRay this morning. Last one, man, before I get out of here. Bob Custer. Lots of clickbait takes on athletes all over YouTube and Twitter. Lots of it by quote experts who never put on a jockstrap, or by people who do not know their history, sports, and otherwise. I don't disagree. I don't disagree, and I'm not. And I know I've been, I've been shooting more. I shot at Acho yesterday, and I'm shooting more at the proverbial targets in recent days. I don't typically do that kind of thing. I didn't expect that to be the case with this Derrick Rose topic. I actually thought it was more about just not even really shooting at Reggie Miller, just to me like how funny that was. I'm like, what are you talking? 68 years, give me a break. But no, we know the nature of the game, we know the nature of the business. But I do think that, especially for, forget about even like the clickbait takes on athletes from people who haven't played. Think about the clickbait takes from athletes who did play. And what I saw sad when thinking about the Acho thing from yesterday, I saw someone tweeted earlier that athletes, and I've said this a ton, by the way. This is not someone me repeating a tape from somebody else. This is something I've also said. But now I think people are starting to hip game to it. That all the athletes have been saying all these years, like, "Oh, you clickbait people, all you care about is clickbait and creating drama and saying things for reactions. And that's why athletes are not going to take over the media, because we know the game more." And then athletes will get on a mic and say some of the dumbest crap you'll ever hear. Some of the dumbest, most clickbaity, attention grabby thing, and you're just like, I thought you were supposed to be different. I thought you were supposed to bring us the expertise from the game. I thought you were supposed to bring us a vision of football or basketball or baseball that me, the nerd with the glasses that never played the sport on a professional level, could ever bring. I listen to the Astros and the Draymond Greens of the world say something I can hear from Skip Bayless tomorrow. There's no difference. It was all a scam. It was all a money grab. And it's not everybody. There are some athletes who do great work, who do great podcasts, who do great analysis. And it's not everybody. But I think that there has been this influx, and there's been this kind of nasty attitude about it too. We're going to run you out. We're going to run you out of business. You're not going to have a job. There's actually a disdain that comes with it. And it's going to be because we're going to be above hot takes and above clickbait. And then you got former NFL players telling current NFL players they shouldn't listen to their head coach. You think we're stupid. Newsflash, I think people are getting hipped. We're not that stupid. You're doing the same damn thing. That's where we're going to leave it, man. I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this edition of 40 Days and 40 Nights. This was a fun one. We're going to have a lot more to get to wrap up a big time week. We got to talk some Royal Rumble. That's happening on Saturday. I got to watch some of Wonder Man so I can get some of my takes off on that. And we'll see what else we get off to in the sports world, man. There's always some fun stuff happening. It's Friday, so you get some Friday dumps. So people trying to just bury news in hopes of getting away. The good news is I'm here on at 6 p.m. on Friday, so you can't dump stuff past me. I'll be right there to catch it. And that's a funny drop if someone had to drop for me. But I'm right there to catch it. So if something fun happens over the week, we'll definitely, over the day rather, we'll get to it. My guy Sully's in the chat. Shout out to Sully. Go Pats, baby. I know some of you fans aren't going to see that. He's a huge Pats fan. What's up, Sully? Not rooting for your team, but I know you're excited. And I love this. We back after a long 6 years. Yeah, get out of here with that. Get out of here with that. Nobody's trying to hear about a long 6 years when, in my lifetime, I've never seen the Jets make the Super Bowl, let alone you having a long 6 years after winning, 6 championships? Oh, my, yeah. Get out of here with that, man. But again, thank you guys. Again, this is on 48, 49. You can catch all these episodes on the New Generation Media YouTube channel, New Generation Media. That's where you can go. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like, thumbs up, comment. Do whatever you got to do to support the channel, man. We greatly appreciate it. New Generation Media, as where you'll find us on YouTube. We're on X, obviously, me, EJ_Stewart, where I'm streaming live. Also, at New Generation Pod is the channel's channel or account on X. We're also streaming live on Instagram, Action EJ. You can also follow us on Instagram, Action EJ, New Generation Podcast on Instagram. That's where we follow the pages on New Generation Podcast. And then follow me also on TikTok, Action EJ. I'm on there as well. And every episode is up on our audio podcasting channel, New Generation Podcast Network, where you'll find that. Search New Generation Podcast Network and get all the episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights, along with all the other podcasts that we do on our network. But that's it, man. That's going to do it. If I get the music. Hey, that's the music. Delayed direction there. I want to thank you guys again for checking me out. At 6 p.m., I'll be back with whatever we got happening in the world of sports. We'll also talk some Royal Rumble. We'll also talk some Wonder Man, hopefully. I have enough time. I got lots to do today, but I want to get some Wonder Man in, so hopefully we'll get that. And we'll see what else we got going into the weekend, man. But this was a fun one. I'll catch you guys in a little bit. I'm EJ Stewart. Take it easy.